All right, welcome to episode 81 of the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast. I'm your host, once again, late as ever, Jeremy. And joining me are two people who I have done the show with before, way before I think we even called it the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast, back when it was still just the Zenspath Podcast. From up north, somewhere, in the mysterious lands of who knows where, Steven, how are you?
Hello.
And then we have, without video, because he is our man of mystery at this point, Chris. He is just the voice of the darkness. Just, hello.
I'll take it.
Man, it's been a little while. I apologize for the delay. As I've said before on Twitter and so forth, I've been having trouble recording this show by myself. Not because I can't do it, just because I will sit here and yell at myself in my own brain. I really need to do it, and I just won't. ADHD, ladies and gentlemen. It's just way easier to do this stuff when I have somebody else with me, because then I get pushed to do these things. So yay, I appreciate it. But let's start off, because we haven't talked to you guys in a while, and just find out what you've been up to. Let's see. Chris, you want to start us off?
I got into the Pokemon craze. I've been playing Pokemon Scarlet. Been playing Power Wash thanks to the Tomb Raider thing with Steven. And I've been replaying Wario Land 4 because I completed Pizza Tower and the itch did not go away.
Yep. Okay, so I've heard about Pizza Tower a couple of times, and I've been kind of wondering what it's about. So just give me a rundown of what this is. You told me a little bit that it's kind of Wario style, but I'm curious.
Believe it or not, that's actually a term now. There's something called a Wario-like. There are two big games that I know about. Pizza Tower, which just came out on the 28th of January, I think.
Oh, really recently?
Anton Blast, which is still being worked on.
Uh-huh.
But Pizza Tower is a very loosely animated and off-kilter game where you play as this pizza chef who's trying to scale the aforementioned Pizza Tower to stop a living pizza face from destroying his failing business. It's very off the wall, very MTV Liquid Television. It's just done by one guy who just really likes the style.
Oh no, as soon as you said Liquid Television, I knew exactly what kind of style you're talking about. All kinds of art styles, but I get the general animation feel of that.
I understood that reference.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's
very loose. It's also very combo-based, which is odd because the original Wario Land 4 game was more about exploration, but this one is all about speed. You want to hit as many enemies as possible before finishing the level.
Oh, okay. What are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on PC. Right now, it's only available on Steam and itch.io as far as I know.
Okay.
I kind of doubt Nintendo will put it on the Switch, but, one can hope.
Yeah, I could see it appearing on the eShop because the eShop doesn't really have that tight of a guideline. So
right. Most of those games usually eventually get there. Maybe we'll get a physical copy, but all right. Well, Chris, you got anything else?
Aside from that, I've been sucked into Pokemon Scarlet like everybody else. It's weird. Everybody was complaining about the bugs, but when you actually get down and play the game, you eventually stop noticing them. So it's not so bad.
I didn't really have any major ones when I played it. So, I just enjoyed it.
Oh well.
It was rough. Don't get me wrong.
That's the thing, though. If the game is good enough that you just enjoy the game itself, we still shouldn't, forgive Game Freak for any crunch or just leaving things as they are.
Right.
But they really wanted to get the holiday time in. And in a business standpoint, I get it, but I don't approve.
Yeah, they probably should have pushed Arceus back some, and then just that way they could push Scarlet to this year or something, Because I find it hard to believe we got Arceus and Scarlet and Violet in the same year. It's just bookended to both sides. You guys could have moved some stuff around.
And we got Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but that was a different company.
Was that this year? Last year? I can't tell time anymore.
I
It's
think it
blending
was
together.
I think it was Arceus, then Brilliant Diamond, then Scarlet, but I could be wrong.
Oh, good lord. Yeah, no, they could have spaced that out. We had too much Pokemon at one time. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's funny. Like people will start complaining about it, something they read about Pokemon Scarlet or Violet, and then Pokemon Company will be like, "Look at this new evolution," and then all will be forgiven for a while.
We put a hat on Pikachu. Aww.
Like we can meme that. Okay,
Right?
we forgive you for now that the graphics don't look like Genshin Impact yet.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, Steven, what you been up to?
Well, I recently, I'm in rehab from completing Vampire Survivor. That game hooked me hardcore, where I barely avoided seeing the sunrise on my evenings because I was just like one more, one more, one more, and I even looked into like kind of the history of the game and found that the guy just got inspired by a mobile game and then decided, hey, this asset pack looks really cool, and the rest was history. He put something together. He didn't know people would like it. People, it's one of those games that actually, and this is rare in this day and age, that you hear about hidden gems and things like that, and they're usually not hidden gems. They're stuff that's on the shelf when you go to the store.
Right.
Hidden gems for me is something like you get from word of mouth, and this was definitely that. People were just talking about it, talking about it. So when it finally appeared on a platform where I could easily have no barrier of regret, I was just like, "Oh, Game Pass, let me try it out." And I was just like, "This is addicting." So yeah, I recently completed that. It gave me the final achievement and said, "Yeah, you got everything. You got the final character."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Now I find myself just kind of, like he said, like Chris said, with like that itch. I find myself kind of jumping between the big three and saying, "Okay, what kind of demos or what kind of games do you have coming up, or what do you have available for me to play for free right now?" Um, I increasingly keep finding that the eShop keeps getting more and more point and click games like the adventure games,
Right.
and that the pixel art that they use now is getting more towards what I'm used to playing on like the Commodore 64 and stuff like that. So it's really cool that it's coming full circle. But I love that it's there's like a renaissance of those type of games. Like people aren't just trying to put out a mobile game on Switch. They are, but now there's just people that are actually going to say there's a huge audience for people who want these type of games again. So it's nice.
Well, it's kind of nice because it's more they're we're kind of going beyond in some ways requiring particular graphical levels so we can use whatever style works best for something. I kind of
Yeah.
see that more often. It's not,
Yeah, I didn't understand the vitriol for Return to Monk Island. I thought that game was fantastic. I finished that one, and it actually made me laugh out loud a few times, which, for video games, they can be funny, but for me to laugh out loud, that has to be really good. So,
yeah, I have that one ordered. I'm waiting on my physical Switch copy to come in before I play it. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
I was just like, I was like, I don't want anybody to spoil this. So, FOMO, fear of missing out, took hold there, and I said, I'm still going to get the physical to put it with my other Monkey Island games, but I was like, I need to play this.
See, now I'm going to worry about you because I was like, nobody talks to me about Monkey Island. I'll be perfectly safe. And then you show up and I'm like, oh, now I'm worried. I may have to get this, but I'll be able to get it on something else I got. But go ahead and continue on what else you've been doing.
But yeah, through that, I've been joining. I pulled him back into Power Wash because I said, "Hey, we finished the game together. We did all the levels. Um, we did all the special things they had that needed two people." So I said, "Hey, DLC brought us back in. It shows how like simple DLC can bring you back to a game that you liked, but you didn't know what else you could do with it because." I don't know. Power Wash is a weird game that. Do you really want to go back to cleaning the same thing again? Like
It
maybe
just
if you
sounds
have,
so weird, but everyone seems to love it.
I
um,
thought it was dumb until I tried it, and that
and
seems
then
to be the hook.
and to piggyback on that, because of Power Wash, I was just, I you know how Xbox has their pins on the their homepage
Right.
shows like the last 5 things you accessed, and one of them was House Flipper, and I was like, all right, I'm going back to House Flipper now. So I'm like back to the simulation world for a bit.
Oh man.
So
That's probably another one I'm gonna have to eventually just break down and try out because I keep
yeah, because
hearing
they
about
just
it.
added pets, and now there's a second one coming out this year, and I was like, okay, it's relaxing. The music is like you're in a doctor's office, but it's nice.
It seems almost like a game you just like while you're listening to like a podcast or something, be just pressure washing and cleaning things.
Well, Power Wash is definitely that because I've actually seen um some prolific YouTubers such as even like Markiplier. He's
Mm-hmm.
decided that they do like I forget what he called it, but he basically like invites another YouTuber friend of his and they just chat while on the screen you're just watching them do an entire level of Power Wash. And there's just something so you can kind of because you're turning off your brain for the game, you can use your brain to just discuss things with a friend. And it's probably the closest thing. It's the video game version of do you want to talk about this over a cup of coffee? It's more like do you want to talk about this over a Power Wash level? It's crazy, but it works. It's just soothing.
Oh, how far humanity has fallen.
It's very zen. It's all we have now.
It's
Right.
healthier. You're not drinking coffee. You're just sitting there
I
like,
like coffee.
hey, what's going on?
That's true.
But
Oh
yeah,
Lord.
between work, like sometimes when work's crazy, it's just being in kind of like he said, zen. Um, Survivor did that because I just zoned in on that game, and then going back to the simulators, it was kind of like just sit back and be like, the only problem I'm worrying about is the problem the game's giving me. So
Lord. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and jump into what I've been doing here because I've actually been fairly busy recently. And to start that off, I did finally, because I'm not the biggest fan of PC gaming, but I decided to go ahead and take the dive and I bought a Steam Deck. Got the 512 model. I figured I'd go all the way in. And Steam or Valve messed up the order and sent me two.
Oh, hey,
So
nice.
I got an extra 512 Steam Deck. They only sent me
Nice.
one dock. I'm not going to complain about that, but they sent me two freaking Steam Decks. I made a lot of friends very quickly because people kept asking me, "Oh, well, what are you going to do with it? Can I have it?"
Can I
No.
have it? They could have offered to buy it at the very least.
Yeah, I had some people like, "Let me get the money together and I'll buy it." I was like, "No." I ended up giving it. I did try and contact Valve. To my credit, I tried to contact them and be like, "Hey, you guys messed up. What do you want me to do with it?" But they don't have people you can talk to. It's just their automatic system, and I couldn't get it to send a proper message, and I never heard back from them. So I'm like,
So you couldn't even
okay,
like message the official Steam Deck Twitter page, like you couldn't DM them or anything.
we don't talk about that part.
Oh,
I tried to go through their support. That's all I should have to do.
True. No, there's some tech companies that are just how do I speak to Google and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I've tried talking to Facebook when my account was stolen, and that
How
never
do I
worked.
speak to YouTube? They never answer me.
Well, I've tried to talk to Twitter ever since they still never restored the podcast Twitter account. I still don't even know why they suspended it. And even when they brought back all those accounts they unsuspended, they still didn't do mine. And I'm like,
As
what
far
did
as
we
I
do?
as far as I could read, is if you're touting anything that might be a Twitter competitor, they shut off those accounts. Like if you said like,
I didn't know a
hey,
podcast was.
hey, they even took away the birthday balloons on your birthday, so they're mean now.
Oh, that's some
hey, it's only one person back there now, and he's screwing
Oh,
everything up.
one rich man, baby. His cars catch on fire. Now he wants Twitter to catch on fire. But anyways, so I finally got my Steam Deck, and it has been like a renaissance for me getting back into computer gaming because I don't like sitting at a desk. I have a nice PC setup. I usually use it for editing and stuff, but I always like playing on a console. I sit down, I put the game in or turn it on. I can be comfortable. It works. I got my surround sound, whatever. And then for portability, I still really like my Switch. And this has kind of become the combination of those. I wondered, like, how much am I going to play it? And then, like an idiot who's like, no, I can do drugs once and it's fine. I'll be great. I bought Vampire Survivors.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
no.
So I have that and it's portable. So I can be sitting anywhere and play it. And oh my God, I have gotten lost in that game.
Wow, and I thought
Right?
it couldn't get any worse.
Yeah, because you don't
Oh,
realize that most of those runs only allow you to go for like 15, 30 minutes. But that's 15, 30 minutes of one more, one more. That
yeah.
adds up.
And then I got endless mode and I'm going, oh,
Yeah.
I've really lost track of time.
Yeah, I've taken screenshots that I've showed Chris where I was just like, hey, I can't get touched. I can't die. I have to manually quit because it's been on for over an hour.
Yeah, I did that where I was like, I've gotten to the point, it won't stop, and everything's happening in a particular sequence. I sat the Steam Deck down in here, went, cooked dinner, did dishes, did everything else, came back, it was still going. I'm like,
And some of those
wow.
you have to because they're like kill 100,000 enemies in a single run, and I'm like I'm going to put this down and do something for a little bit.
Wasn't aware of that one. I may have to do that.
Yeah, two of the characters have achievements, or Steam achievements, or unlockables where it's like you have to do 100,000 in a single run with just
Oh,
two
okay.
characters, thankfully. Otherwise, the game's like, please don't. But
I had more fun with using the tree than I thought I would. That thing ended up like I was just demolishing things with that.
I
Once you
was
get some
trying to,
speed built up, it's just
yeah, I
tearing
was
through
really
things.
trying to use the tree, but it was just too ridiculous. I was like, let me just get to where they want me to get to with this character, which I think was like 15 minutes with it or something. But I was like,
Right.
yikes.
I just focused
Um,
on getting him faster and faster. When I got a decent walking speed with it, I was like, all right, cool. Now we can cause some damage.
But yeah, that's interesting because Chris and myself picked up the Steam Deck because we both agreed, like, hey, we're gonna jump in on this. If we agree what we're gonna use it for is a good viable option. And I said I wanted something that I could take with me to because they said they would fully support emulation and it was going to be really great for that. And as well as having most of the games that I've either gotten free for Steam, or I've gotten humble bundles. I had a
Yep.
lot of classic titles I wanted to play. So I felt a little bit different about it in certain ways because sometimes I'd get really excited to play a game on it just to see it's not compatible. So I was like, man, why is this not compatible? Or I'd hear about how much tweaking you'd have to do if you wanted to play like Elden Ring or Control on it,
Yeah,
and
I
you'd
was
really have
worried
to
about
mess
some of
with it.
that too.
And that part messed with me a little bit. So, seeing my Steam library of Humble Bundle games go from like hundreds to be like 26 of your games work great. And I'm like, seriously? So, having at least the other systems on there and be able to play. I actually celebrate June 6th, I call Snatcher Day. I replay Snatcher every single year, and now I have a system powerful enough that I don't have to finagle it or go through a weird homebrew
Yeah.
hack. It's just I can load it up and it looks great on my TV and I can play it
I'll have
normally.
to get with you on that one because I'm trying to get Snatcher running on mine because I've never got the chance to play that. And I wanted to play it on something that's really good. Because what I like about this is like, you know, you can, I have the dock for this so I can output it to the TV and use it for that. And I'm not going to try and put it on like a 4K TV because that's just ridiculous trying to push that. But I have a really nice 1080p TV that's in my bedroom. So I put the dock in there and like bringing up Vampire Survivors or playing Witcher
Mm-hmm.
3 or what other games on there looks great. It looks fine to me on that and I can play it. But it is, you're talking about, it's kind of weird with the compatibility is like I can play the living crap out of Arkham City. It runs beautifully. Cannot even start Arkham Asylum. Like it won't even boot. It
Yeah,
crashes every time.
some of them will give you a good description saying it's because it uses keyboard keys. So
Right.
those when I see that I'm still happy because then I'll just change key bindings to be what I need it to be to
Right.
play the
It's really
game.
quick.
But then another one, which Chris and I just started because the fourth one just came out. So I said, hey, do you want to jump in on this? There's a game called We Were Here. And We Were Here is you're two people thrown into a locale. And in this case, the first one is a castle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you're thrown into different rooms. So, and the only thing you can do is you have a push to talk one way walkie talkie. so you can't talk over each other because it'll cut the other person out.
Ah.
So, he'll be in the library while I'll be like the person who has to flip the switches or get through the rooms, and it's really unique that we're keep talking to each other. It's like, what do you see on the wall? What kind of symbols do you see? What is the room like? What is it asking you to do? And it's really cool because it kind of just like challenges each other for conversation. And then there's rooms like we've unfortunately come across where like it's filling with water. So I'm telling him, please hurry up with whatever you're trying to figure out.
That's the thing, though, because the two options are librarian and explorer. If you're the librarian, you're in a room with all these books and maps and various things. So you're just running around in this one room trying to figure out, okay, what does he need right now? And if I don't find it, he's going to die in some way or another. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here like, hang on. I think it's page 35. How you doing? Oh.
But I can definitely, now that I've picked up that game, I can see the appeal, and when we get time, we're gonna try to get through them all. But right now, we're still working on the first one.
I may have to look this one in and try it out.
Because I played A Way Out. Anything by pretty much Hazelight is amazing. So I've played A Way Out with a friend. We're almost done with It Takes Two with Chris, and those two are really great titles. And then other than we
Still
were
need to play
here,
those.
I played Operation Tango on PlayStation, and that one with a friend is incredible because you're literally yelling at your friend, like, look on the screen, please tell me what you see, tell me when the guard walks by. It's really, really cool. So it's like, because you're like a spy team, and one's the Oracle, so to speak, while the other one's the Batman. So
it kind of reminds me, there's a VR game we always like to play called Keep Talking or Everyone Explodes.
Oh yeah,
where the person with the VR headset can see the bomb, but people on the TV, if you output it like on a PlayStation or a computer or on their phones, they have the instructions and can talk and do stuff, but they can't see the bomb. Only the person in the VR headset can see it. So you have to sit there and try and like tell them what you're seeing, what you're doing, so they can find where in the instructions you need to go. And
because I love that game, just like Vampire Survivors, enough that I have it on anything that supports it. So I have it on PSVR, I have it on Switch, I have it on Steam Deck. Because that one was another like great one to play, because then you're just holding it up and telling like, tell me what you see and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's a great party game.
And I printed out the manual and gave everybody a page because they're like, I think I'm going to be the expert on this part. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I gave everybody the download of it, and then I had a notebook I made with all the pages in there so you could flip through it like a manual. Mm-hmm. Oh, I miss doing that. I'm going to go move on. Some of the other stuff I've been playing, or actually not, I guess playing with, I finally fulfilled a dream I've had since I was a child. I got a Proton Pack. Like,
nice.
Full-size, legit, light sound Proton Pack from the HasLab Kickstarter that they did. Or I call it a Kickstarter, but HasLab kind of does their thing with it. But this one's based off of Egon's the later version of it. But oh, it's so nice. I have it. You can't see it from here, sadly. I'm going to move it eventually, but I have it hanging on the wall in the other game room. And I'm going to start doing some mods to it and everything. But I don't know. I've just, since I was a kid, I wanted a Proton Pack. And yes, I walked around with it on for a day.
Hey,
I got coffee with it on my back.
How
so did you ever read that that they actually made Bill Murray's Proton Pack a lot heavier, so he would always be like have that mad pissy attitude?
Oh,
I thought that was a brilliant behind the scenes like anecdote. Like, yeah, they weighed his down, so he was always just, like really tired walking around, and that wasn't just the acting.
I thought it was just him being grumpy as usual. Nice.
Does it make that satisfying hum when you first turn it on?
Yes.
That's awesome.
And it has the lights and sound effects for both movies. You can have it set for the 84 original, or you can have it set for the Afterlife one, which is nice. And it, when you turn it on for Afterlife, you can hear like the cyclotron's not quite running right. It's running fast. You hear that little as it's going. The lights are going quicker. Um, if you pull some of the cables or mess with stuff, because it'll do that. Sometimes you'll hear the little Stay Puft guys messing with it. Like if you pull the cable too soon and it starts having an error. If you're in the 84 mode, it sounds just like it did when they turned it on. Same slower light sequence. And then if you pull the cable, instead of an error sound, it starts playing the sound when they shut down the containment unit. That whir, whir. I was like, yes. Because you can open the cyclotron and everything. Like, I'm going to take some better pictures of this thing, but it is. I'm not. I felt like a kid again. I was so happy because I remember
awesome.
specifically in like fourth grade when we first moved to Florida. My parents had some friends that lived a couple blocks over, and their kids had one of the original Kenner Real Ghostbusters backpacks. And
Nice.
they let me wear it one time. And I never forgot how much I loved wearing that thing and having the proton pack. So, yeah.
You finally got to do it again.
Yes. And I feel so happy about it. I've already put the Alice frame on it. I'd already gotten the neutrino wand, so that was connected and actually works with it now. So I'm actually working. This will be part of my first cosplay ever. I'm going to take it to Dragon Con this year. And I'm getting the rest of my outfit for Ghostbusters. I can't reach right now; it's over there. But I do. I even had the name patch made that says Powers for my last name on it. So I'm working on that, and I'm 3D printing and wiring up all the parts to make a PKE meter, so I can actually turn it around. And just once, I'm going to find some old person and just kind of scan them, and then just like poke them just to make sure.
Oh Lord!
Just once, I'm sure I'm going to get kicked out for assault, but.
It'll be worth it. Yeah, I'm sure they'll be like, "Oh, I get it. Very funny."
Make sure it's a mannequin or a statue, and just be like,
"No, it has to be an old person."
Oh Lord!
Oh, you can't be like, "He is Vigo."
Oh no, that's my next thing. If they ever make, God help me, if they ever do want to make a slime pack, I will get it. I'm a sucker for that. So the last two things I was going to talk about real quick are the games I've been playing recently. I've picked up Dead Space Remake. Have either of you seen that yet?
So I have seen it, and big fan of Dead Space. Big fan of playing that game, surround sound in the dark as well.
Yes.
The remake, I still, I'm always hesitant to buy games day one, so I'm still like on the fence. But hearing stuff, especially the new, I don't want to call it an engine, but they said there's a new mode they put in there that will randomize the jump scares every time you play. So
that's okay. That's cool.
So it's kind of a new experience to mess with you. So if you think you're like tough guy and you're like, oh, I know where all the monsters are. No, they randomize it every time. And I was like, man, that sounds great.
They've made changes to the story and some of the gameplay, but it fits in so well. Even playing it, you barely notice that it's changed. It feels right for what you're doing. I will comfortably say I've been playing it for a good couple of hours. As a huge fan of the original one, I played it on PS3, 360. I even have it on PC. I was playing it on my Steam Deck before the game came out. I would say this is like a full replacement. I would recommend people play this because it's just so beautifully done.
It just hurts that Callisto Protocol couldn't coexist with it because it made it needs a patch to kind of go over some of those issues with combat system and such.
All I hear about the Callisto Protocol is how disappointed everybody became.
Looks beautiful. Game looks.
I haven't had a chance to play it because I'll be honest. I wanted to get back into the world of Dead Space because I liked how that world was. Like I liked playing the series. I even loved the Wii game they made. If you've ever played that one.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was an absolutely fantastic prequel. It was like
I've even seen those articles of people touting the mobile game being its own little survival horror game, and it's been incredible too. Because
I forgot that existed.
It takes place in between 1 and 2, and people were like, "You're missing out. It's a really good game." And I was like, "Oh yeah," because I remember playing the Wii version that eventually came to PS3 because they were like, "We need more move games." But it was like a nice companion game. And
I think it was digital only, which is why I never picked it up on PS3.
And nowadays people are just like, hey, if you're really interested in the story, track down the anime first for Dead Space.
Forgot about that too.
Watch that because that's a prequel,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're ready to understand a lot more of the I'm going to just call them codex and such that you find throughout the game
Right.
that will enhance it because you've watched the anime. That you're like, I remember that character. I remember what they were before all this happened and stuff.
Right.
And I was always fascinated with Dead Space because, as gross as it sounds, they said they looked at basically. I wouldn't say morgue photos, but they just looked at car accident victims in order to get how their monsters would look. And I was like, that's gruesome, terrifying, and awesome.
I mean, there's actual body farms that people go to that, you can study different levels of decomposition and so forth. And I was having to do artwork for somebody, just doing like digital art. I was working on something for zombie flesh and so forth. And I actually went and researched seeing some of the images from those places. And it's terrifying to look at, but you see how the human body goes. And people are like, you looked at what? And it's like, just shut up. I need to know what color to use.
That's pretty wild, actually.
But that's the purpose of it. So they can be like, all right, well, if the body's left in this condition, it's left outside, what kind of animals are going to go after it? What's it going to be like in this weather for this much time? And people donate their bodies for this. It's a very useful thing because that's how they figure out time and dates and things for decomposition and so forth. So it's
Name us at last.
Say what?
Name us at last.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't make for a good status update. I've been to a body farm today.
I found your grandma. Oh God.
In pieces.
She's seen better days. A muskrat ate her face. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, Dead Space, just graphically alone, that game is absolutely phenomenal for the stuff they've done, the lighting effects and everything. The sound is so well done. And
That's awesome.
They have a nice little bit, like if you remember the part early in the game where the door is just slamming shut, open and close, yep, right before you get the stasis thing. The way they do the sound now, and Digital Foundry did a good demonstration of this, they actually bounce the sound and change how it would be. Like, so if you're down the hallway, you hear it, and as you walk closer and turn the corner, it actually sounds how it would be with that diffusion and change. It's almost like ray tracing for sound, like the way they're doing it. So I haven't played it with headphones on yet, but I have it on a full surround sound. So, but also using that surround sound is the last game I want to talk about, and that is Hi-Fi Rush. Oh my God, this game is already on my 2023 Game of the Year list. I'm not even kidding. I've already beat it. Like, I absolutely love this game.
Everybody is saying
See,
it is gorgeous, and it's so much fun and funny.
We're probably like one of the few people on the other side of the bubble.
Okay.
But, I had him play all the way. I was like, hey, can you play this game? Because it's not clicking for me, so I want to see if I'm missing out or something. And he's like, yeah, I hear so much about it. So Chris is like, I'll play it.
Mm-hmm.
So he stopped in and he played up to
the first
boss. The first boss, the big robot thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just don't get it. And I was like, I really like the attention to detail. Don't get me wrong. The way everything, the way the whole
like
level.
I don't expect like, how dare you not like this?
Yeah, the way the whole level goes with the game, like the music and such with the beat is fantastic. But I was just like, this reminds me of like your common platformer. It's just trying to add in rhythm. So I was just like,
I'll tell you right now, it's nice how they, like, you will continuously get new parts to that, new abilities, new combos, more moving with the rhythm and different effects. When you start doing stuff in the air and you add in the dodge, they don't throw it at you at once. They actually do parse it out as you play. So it continuously feels like it's growing. And then when you get to the last couple of levels, you've got the full set of everything. Plus you're going in and earning and unlocking different abilities or combos and stuff as you want. And you start building up your own style of how you do it. And I was pulling off like this whole complicated rhythm based stuff while, I think the fight, I'm not going to describe the fight itself, but it starts playing Prodigy's Invaders Must Die. And that entire time period of that song is probably my favorite part of that game because it is just hectic as hell to go along with the music. And it was great.
Yeah. I might try again, but it's just, I think maybe because I'm oversimplifying the game, so I'm just like, I don't. It's not clicking the way like I had to keep playing Vampire Survivor or something like that. So it wasn't like, oh, like one more level, or oh, I want to see what happens to him next. Don't get me wrong though, the game is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Uh, it is superbly animated, and the fact that it's kicking Forspoken's butt right now is pretty hilarious.
Chris, what were you going to say?
The one thing that got me
Uh huh.
about Hi-Fi Rush is actually its big selling point. The fact that you're fighting to the beat. And that is a very cool idea, but the fact that you can't really fail so much. You can, but it's not going to happen as bad. I like my combos. I'm very much a fighting game aficionado,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing, you have to think on your feet. You make the beat for stuff like that. And you have, like, as an example, you've got Hi-Fi Rush on one side where you do everything to the specific beat, and then you have Pizza Tower on the other side where
Mm-hmm.
you are just going mad and improvising because you have no choice.
Well, here's the thing: you
I
can still improvise in this. You're not forced to do it. Your hits will land on the beat, but you can still do stuff off beat. You just get bonuses and better abilities if you are in rhythm with it, because that's the purpose of it. Porpoise, Florida dolphin. Thanks. Um, because you've got the MP3 player embedded in his chest, so he feels the rhythm, and the world is revolving around that, and everything moves in time. And it does vary with the different songs, which is nice.
I will
So
give it another try as well, but I don't like being punished for going my own way.
I never really felt punished. Like, it took me a little while to get used to the rhythm of it. And now I found out, like, I played through the entire thing on my Series X here in the game room, and I then moved and I was going to try playing more of the stuff after the story in my room on my Series S. And I didn't realize, I guess the audio video sync was off, so I couldn't get
Oh,
the rhythms. And I was like, okay, there's a tool you can go in where you work
That
with
was the
it.
first thing I asked about when he started it up because I have a friend who's she plays a lot of rhythm games, and I was like, there has to be
There is.
a lag, and there was, and I
There's
was
a
like,
tool.
thank goodness, because I was like, that is rule number one. If you put the word rhythm in your game, you better have a way of fixing the lag.
Well, the setup in here I have that works really well because I do play like Guitar Hero and Rock Band and other stuff in here a lot. I don't normally play that in my room, so the whatever little bit of difference, it was enough to throw you off. It's almost like, do you remember the first time you tried to play like Super Mario Brothers on an LCD before we knew what the actual lag was? And you're like, why do I keep dying? Why does everything feel just a bit off? My timing's off. And that's what it was. So I had to adjust that to fix it. Um, so hopefully that's not an issue, but you can find that, I think, in the sound settings where it'll let you
Yeah,
tweak it to the
we played
rhythm.
with the sound settings right away because I
Yeah.
was just like, let's make sure that that's set correctly so we're not off on the wrong foot. So
I'm thinking about going back in and actually streaming part of it. Like, cause I had so much fun playing and I just wanted to finish the game and just enjoy it,
just be careful of
which
those songs.
you say what?
Just be careful of those licensed songs.
Yeah, I'll have to lose the licensed songs, but they have a stream mode you can
Yeah.
activate, which their in-house music is still really good. Like, I really enjoyed their stuff. But the fact that one of the songs came up was a cover of a Fiona Apple song and actually worked really well for a boss fight. And I was like, okay, no, this is great. I did not expect
So,
this.
speaking of streaming, though, just to touch back on a previous game really quick,
Uh-huh.
Vampire Survivors has a very unique Twitch mode
Really?
where your audience or chat or viewers
Mm-hmm.
will vote on your power ups for you.
Oh,
Um, so it is done really extremely well. Where you'll like be begging them, please give me this power up, and you'll see the number get bigger and bigger. And then
oh,
they can do things like just send a huge horde your way. Everybody votes on whether they want to give you more life or just a horde of enemies. And I was just like, that's awesome.
oh, that could be
I
abused or great. I don't know
I
which way
did
that.
not I did not expect a game like that to have a streamer mode, and I was like, I appreciate both games that allow for streamer modes to change the music, and for this one to give you a new way to play.
I want to try that. I've never tried that. But like I said, not every game is going to be for everybody. Like, I get that. I'm not trying to push that at all, but I highly recommend give it another shot. Like, actually, the game only took me about 10 hours to finish. And each
Okay.
chapter, I like the fact that it has a defined beginning and end. It's like listening to a good album to me. You have the track, you can take a break, come back, continue the next track, and it all fits together really well. And they even have fun with that, kind of poking fun at certain areas of like, how am I in this area having this break? And it's actually part of the story. It's really great.
Yeah, I because it like stung a little bit when I see tweets saying, "I'm convinced that if you don't like Hi-Fi Rush, that you don't like video games." I was like, "Ow, dude."
That's not
That's
not
Twitter.
not yeah,
I
not
know,
everybody likes
I
it. Like
know it's gatekeeping, but still, I was like,
I
"Ow."
I think all three of us can agree there are at least parts of this game that are absolutely phenomenal, especially for something like it didn't leak. They just like, here's the game, and then here's literally the game. We just dropped it.
They were, yeah,
And
because
I'm
when I read this,
shocked.
they were afraid it was going to leak, so they're like, "Let's announce it now."
Yeah.
That and the graphics, the graphical style, and just the presentation, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, which is
I
very
want it to
impressive.
be a show. Like I love the characters. I love the voice work, the acting, the comedy, the writing of it. Like I want this to be a show. Honestly, I would watch it, even just if it's a short film. Like
It definitely leaves an impression, and it's not like we don't want to like the game. It's just that Steve and I each have a certain thing that stops us from being immersed right
and I get
now.
that, and hopefully I can help fix that somehow. But I also, if it doesn't, that's cool. It happens. I'm not going to be mad about it. I'd be like, never going to have these guys on the show again. They have no taste.
And mine will sound kind of I don't know, kind of just not giving it a fair chance, or just I don't know, just not being fair to it. But the way I saw it, I was just coming from Nintendo games, obviously. That the name of the game is "What's Your Gimmick?" Is I was just like, this is a really cool gimmick, and then I was, as a famous Marvel quote would say, take away all that, what are you? And I was just like, this is a for me. And it could have just been Chris's platforming skills at the time.
Thank
I,
you.
I was like, this doesn't seem like a very well put together platformer. But I was like, but I can maybe blame it on him for right now.
You play it
Uh,
next time.
but it was just the way the levels were laid out. I was just like, is it not? Is it just throwing in that to kind of for exposition and to get you to point A to point B? I've played way too many games that shoehorn in certain types of boring gameplay that kind of bring the game down, which would be like platforming. And then when you're done with it, you get what makes the game great, which in this case would be like the rhythm and the music.
Right. And the platforming did get to the point where you're going through certain parts with the rhythm of it. So you'll stop and look at where the way platforms are moving until you kind of catch like, okay, I see what the beat is now on this. So you'll activate something and then you kind of follow the rhythm to get through it. I like when you're fighting some of the bigger bosses and they have their last desperation move, and it becomes almost like a DDR game where you have to go between dodging and blocking to kind of get the rhythm, which then gives you a chance for a one hit kill on them, which is great. Um, do you guys like The Evil Within? You ever played it?
I have not played that yet, because I usually have to, once I put myself in a survival horror mindset, then I can go to that. So I
Well,
think once I'm ready for Dead Space, I can go into Evil
I
Within.
won't. I've never played it, but I know I'm aware of the characters. I won't say what they say, but I had a good laugh. But you do find the robot versions of those two characters hidden throughout the game as this very noir HR department.
Yeah,
It's
I think
Clever.
I saw photos of people just saying I love the throwback to blah blah blah, and they
Yeah, I
showed.
think I posted something on Twitter. Like I wasn't. It was a pretty early find. It's not like spoiling the story, but it's just they're just such a funny little joke to have in there. I don't know. I'm curious to see if you guys give it another try, how it goes, and if it doesn't, I'm
I
also curious about like what caused you to bounce off of it. That's kind of interesting.
To each their
So
own.
Yeah,
yeah,
because
of
usually when
course.
you hear about something like this is fantastic, and you're like, oh, I have to play it now. It's it's like a new flavor soda or something. You're just like, now I'm curious. Like everybody's liking it. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe it's not soda for me. But it's like, okay, I'll try it.
Yeah, I mean, when you start getting later on, there's combos that are entire rhythm games, or it's almost like playing what was that DS game, the Elite Beat Agents,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going through entire mechanics like that, hitting the buttons with the rhythm across the screen while you're doing combos for boss fights. And I'm like, this is great. This is so weird. So,
Well, because it's funny you like mentioned a different game too, because what he was evoking when he was talking about fighting games and combos is
mhm.
there is I'm going to call it a hidden gem because it's something you had to either import or find online. Um, and correct my name if I'm wrong, Chris, but it was like Super Slappy Rhythm Busters,
Slap Happy Rhythm Busters.
Slap
It's a
Slap
Happy Rhythm
really
Happy.
weird
Busters,
name.
and
I love it.
it was like a cell shaded slash polygonal fighting game. But when you did super combos, you basically just did like kind of like a inverse DDR where all the notes would come into the center, and you'd have to
Oh,
press the
yes.
direction. And while you were doing it, your character would be completing his combo in a fluid motion, and it made that part
Ah.
fun. So he was taking that, saying like, maybe I'm going to get that nostalgia again of that type of gameplay with this.
There
And
are
then
little bits of
it
something like
wasn't
that
hidden.
in there that you do eventually get to.
Okay,
So
so
that's
there's
cool.
hope. Yeah,
Maybe another try.
I'll stream it and you guys can watch and we'll figure it out that way.
there you go.
I will show you why this game is great.
And if we don't like it, we'll never see you again.
Twitter block. All right. All right. So I think we've talked enough about those wonderful games and why you should all play Hi-Fi Rush. So we'll go ahead and move over to talk about the news. So to start off, Wizards of the Coast. Last time we were on this show, when I was talking with Rachel at the time, before you guys were here, Wizards of the Coast kind of lost their damn minds. We're coming out with their OGL Open Game License 1.1, and they got a severe backlash on that. And the good news is they finally backed off of it. I think they're still trying to do something, but they're realizing this is not going to go over well. And part of what figured it out for them, or what kind of persuaded them, because it's always going to be about the money, not about actual, did we do the right thing? It's like, oh God, our money is under attack. They had so many people canceling and getting refunds on D&D Beyond, it shut the site down. And they were like, oh God, we're hemorrhaging money. We have to stop. So
Yeah,
people screwed them right where they needed to be, I guess.
yeah. They played the call center PR card. They were just like, "Oh, thank you for your feedback. We hear you." I'm like, okay.
While the background's on fire.
We felt you because our money bin started to shrink like an episode of DuckTales. So I was like,
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing is ridiculous because Hasbro just saw D&D as a commodity
Yep.
that so many YouTubers and streamers and other places like Critical Role et al. Were making new items of and making money off of that Hasbro was not getting. So they figured, okay, we'll change the rules so we get all the money, and
Mm.
we're going to just give the streamers a contract to sign. And when one streamer said, wait a minute, this is not what it's supposed to be, and leaked that contract to everybody,
Yep.
WotC was like, no, it's not a contract, it's a draft. It's a draft. Really? It was not a draft.
No. I mean, and the problem is, even if they're backing off of this legitimately, which is great, the damage is done. Nobody's going to trust them for this now. Like, you
None
can't
of the
just,
floodgates are open.
yeah. Because I mean, this was kind of a blatant way of going like, hey, we're gonna try and shut down Pathfinder. We're gonna, get control of this stuff, like you said, and people are now hesitant because that's entire jobs, careers that are built around it.
Yeah, so now people are finding other things. Critical Role is thinking of making their own system. What this has done, essentially, is open the floodgates for everybody to find something else before this happens again.
Yeah.
So Wizards has
it's forcing
essentially...
people who thought it was finite.
Yeah, exactly. So now Pathfinder is really on the radar now. There
Yeah.
are so many... I actually don't use 5e as my D&D system, but I know so many others who do, and they were panicking. So,
Yeah, I saw even somebody woke up Steve Jackson and they're like, "Hey, we're going to use GURPS again." And it got to the point where Steve Jackson Games was like, "We hear you. We're working on something. Stay tuned." And I was just like, "See, you woke up a sleeping giant who had been dormant for years because it just wasn't something that people like said in their daily vernacular for like D&D type scenarios." So I
Right.
was just like, now people are you open the doors to the casino and they went out into the real world again with the bright light, and they're like, oh, there's another world still out here. So now they're looking into GURPS, they're looking into Pathfinder, like he said, and some of them are like, oh, why can't we make our own?
Yeah,
And then
that's the
some,
thing. It's like, because before Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, people were looking at D&D as a great platform that they could build around and use, that they already had available, so they were perfectly fine with using that, and that's fine. It was a good system for people to enjoy and play games, and you had some alternatives that grew out of it and so forth, but they were just side little bits. Their community wasn't as big. But since they did this, they put that spark and idea, like you said, of making their own or trying all this other stuff, and they've basically just soiled the fields, or salted the fields. They've screwed themselves on this.
Not only that, but D&D players, there's a reason I don't use 5e. It's because I am not very much of a complex strategist or world builder.
Mm-hmm.
People who are really good at Dungeons and Dragons, they look at statistics, laws, and rules as part of their system. If someone is going to find a flaw in the D&D draft, it's a dungeon master, and they did.
Yep.
Hasbro screwed with the wrong nerds.
So you don't mess with the nerds. Revengeful.
Yes.
If this was actually D&D, they rolled a 1.
Oh,
So,
their Twitter thing was pathetic because they actually put that in one of their
oh
D&D Beyond
God,
things. It
I was
said,
making a stupid
we
dad joke.
clearly
Really?
rolled a 1. And
Oh
it
no.
was the worst PR ever. And
Oh
this was
no.
before they caved, by the way. They were going to say, like, well, we're going to update our OGL so it's better. They didn't. And everybody just kept pushing.
Yeah, there
That's
is
one
no
thing that I
better.
was very impressed with. So
Oh.
many D&D guys, Critical Role, Matthew Kogel, they all banded together. They even got Legal Eagle, the lawyer guy from YouTube.
That was a good video, by the way. I watched
It
that.
was.
It
I'm
was
just
I love that channel.
surprised. Like, this was the biggest crossover episode I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I like the stuff he's doing right now. He's touching on AI artwork and all that crap.
Oh, curse it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure you love that.
No. That's a whole other thing. I'm not going to get into it right now. But
yeah, that's a whole
I
nother
actually came up with a good
podcast.
way to try and. I know this is a tangent. I'm going to real quick because I thought of this the other day and I was kind of proud of myself. I was trying to describe to somebody why AI artwork is so bad and why it doesn't actually do anything for creative. And I was like, all right, think of it this way. You go into a restaurant and there's this big table laid out where all these different chefs and kitchen workers and everybody did their best work making all this cuisine and laying it out for you. And you can choose, and enjoy all of it. But then someone comes in uninvited, takes a bunch of the food without asking anybody, shoves it in their mouth, chews it up, and then spits it onto your plate and said, I made that. That's all the good stuff. This is my new creation, even though they just stole and ruined everyone else's stuff. And I was like, that's AI art. You're just basically looking at or trying to pay for regurgitated food.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of, and they all look just eerie and off-putting. Where they're making the EI makeup sitcoms, so they're doing like Futurama, and they're doing the two characters from the beginning of the Street Fighter intro from Street Fighter Two,
Oh, really?
and like I keep seeing it come up on my recommendations because I've watched people talk about AI and seeing just these like plastic looking, but you can tell if it's based on a certain celebrity. Where they're like, "What if Futurama was a sitcom and it's all done by AI?" And it says this show is done by AI, this show is done by AI. And
Yeah.
I was like, we're getting into a dangerous spot. I played with Chat GPT for a while because it was unique. You could have it write a haiku for you, or a song about unicorns, or you could have it write you a 600-word paper about the American Revolution.
Hmm.
So it's because it was basically pulling from kind of like where the Echo would pull from. It would pull from the internet, and it's
Didn't it
gotten
do
big.
that for somebody and like took an entire section of another paper and basically just blatantly just copied it over and they got caught?
I can believe
Yeah,
that.
because
I
thankfully,
yeah.
I think it's because the teacher knew about the AI, but not to go too far into it. But yeah, now the latest thing is this: Microsoft's going to show off theirs. They're
Oh,
actually taking in Chat GPT to use on one of their servers. So the like all these
no.
big tech companies are really interested in it, and I was just like, just don't use it wrong. I know you will, but please don't.
You know they're going to try and use it to replace any employee they possibly can. Like, oh, we don't need a writer. This will do it. We don't need a level artist. This will do it. Oh, we need that
Sorry
box
for a
art. Oh,
bunch of
this will make it.
crap.
Just tell it what we kind of want.
It still doesn't have emotions. So when you ask what you think of this, it says
Most
I
of
don't
corporate
know.
doesn't have that either, but still.
Oh, zing.
They'll just do the I don't know, and I'm like, okay, Chat GPT, because I told it to do something in reverse and it couldn't do it.
Like I've seen some of the stuff like you were talking about, like what Futurama, if it was like an '80s TV show, and I've seen stuff for like, oh, what if there's an '80s live action, fantasy Transformers or like stuff like that. You're like, okay, this is kind of funny to look at, but like, oh god, how many fingers do they have?
The
Stuff like that is
the
interesting, but you're like, it's taking that from somebody else's work somewhere.
so the most recent one I saw, which could have better applications, was there's now a Photoshop AI where you upload a picture, but you can tell it to, I don't know, put sunglasses on me, and it photoshops them in really well. You
Mm.
can tell it to change the scene to night, and it'll do its best, and it looks pretty good. But honestly, it could, if somebody else had their full hours of doing it, they could make it even better. But
I'm a photographer for a lot of the stuff I do. And the reason I will never even touch that is because yeah, you put your photo in and you might want these changes, but you don't know where they got those parts to do it. And now they have a scan and everything of your photo or your stuff going to be referenced in somebody else's work. At what point does that keep getting changed where they're like, hey, I did this? Like that's not a photo. It's just a really weird JPEG, once again, with more fingers than it ever needed.
yeah, I can definitely see like the you know, having any kind of like information leak there. I thought it was an interesting application where it kind of took something that was harder to do, and maybe just your common person maybe wanted to just cut somebody out of the photo. It's really easy to do with a program,
Mm-hmm.
but people who don't want to upload these programs can go to a site and do it. The other one I saw, which I'm not a fan of, which is also like a thing that's coming into gaming now, is that they're starting to send out invites to certain influencers and such to try out these things called AI voice cloning. And what happens is you
Yeah.
feed it like 36 different phrases and it learns your voice. And then what's really scary is then when you can type in sentences and it will guess and usually get right what kind of emphasis you have in your
Mm-hmm.
speech, so it sounds like you. And I was just like, this is worse than deepfake.
Have
First
you
off,
ever have you ever heard of a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew,
yeah,
where they do a lot of video editing and stuff like that? They had an early episode about that where one of the guys got enough clips going back referencing a podcast, pulling the clips of their boss, going to one of these sites, faking it out, using those clips to let him in and do it, and were able to duplicate his voice to do stuff without ever asking him.
yep.
So I've got all these recordings out here. Someone could technically do that with some of my stuff if I say particular key phrases or what they're looking for, and that's not good because then it can turn around and do whatever say whatever I want. And we'll kind of I know this has been a tangent, but we can kind of make this an actual news story because there was some modders that came out recently and were using AI to try and add more content to Elden Ring, I think.
Yeah, I was actually going
And
to segue into that because that was
yes,
worrisome.
and they took they're using the AI to make new lines that the voice actress that played this character never said. And they're making this stuff and thinking it's fine, even though she's not being paid for it, but they're using her voice, her styling and creation of that, and thinking that, oh, we can duplicate it, we can do what we want. And that's, it annoys the crap out of me for that because you're just
The only
stealing from
people
people.
who are probably properly happy about this is lawyers, because the lawsuits that would come out of this for voice actors basically like having their work given out for free.
Hmm.
The person who I saw who was adding those lines, if you looked further in the thread, they even said I can't make them say stupid stuff because they're logging everything that I'm making her say. So somebody's getting that info.
Yeah.
Because you're part of the experiment. So you weren't supposed to just take somebody who's a celebrity or who's a paid voice actor. You were supposed to do it yourself just so they can kind of work out the kinks. And the fact that people were like, "Oh, I can mod the game and now make them say what I always wanted to say, so I can do my localization of it," or even worse, I told Chris, I just said, somebody somewhere is going to mark my words. Let's see, the movie comes out April 7th, so I give it until June or July where someone's going to use AI voice cloning and say, I fixed the Mario movie.
Probably. Or they're going to make him say absolutely terrible things, which
Because
has already happened with real people.
they tried AI, like basic AI before to do it, and it sounded horrible. They were like, "Oh, I used Charles Martinet's voice and I put it in the movie using AI." It sounded
Martinet
horrible.
doesn't have enough voice clips because he doesn't do full normal speech with Mario. He does sounds and particular things. So they don't have enough to actually get to it. They can mess with, certain things that Martinet has said, but he doesn't
Yeah,
always say them in
it.
the Mario voice.
When they did it to the trailer, it fell apart about like 4 or 5 seconds in, and
Right.
it sounded like when if you've ever watched heard voiceovers on TikTok, how they
Mm-hmm.
can't pronounce certain words, or
Yeah.
it sounds off because of the amount of letters they'll put in, like 3 E's or something like that. That's what it did when they tried to do like woohoo and stuff. The AI didn't know
Ooh,
how to
ooh,
do
ooh,
that.
ooh, ooh, ooh.
So I was just like, okay, voice cloning, it's scary and it's cool, and I'm all for when it's used properly, like when they did it in spoilers everybody, and they did it in Obi-Wan because James Earl Jones did not voice all of the lines. They
Yeah,
had him
they've.
come in, they had
Mhm.
him do a session, and then they told the AI, copy that because we need Darth Vader in this.
Well, part of it's also because they have, like, that's one thing because he is aware of it and in
Yeah.
control of it. Same thing with Majel Roddenberry. They had her voice clips and they had recorded all the phonetics so she could still do the computer voice for Star Trek after she died. So they could use, they don't use it for all the newer shows, but they were able to continue using it for certain parts, without being really bad about it. But she was part of it. Same thing for James Earl Jones. They have like his entire recording they could reference for when he read the Bible. That is every phonetic sound you can do that's in there. So they were able to pull from that with his permission and then record new stuff to be able to replace that kind of voice. And like, once again, Chris, I'm curious on your instance of this as an artist, like, how do you feel about that? Because it's the same thing, but it's with his knowledge, his blessing to do it.
Uh, I think that's permissible. The thing is, it's a bit different when you're taking someone's personal voice
Mm-hmm.
from various aggregates. It's
Right.
still that one person doing it. When you have AI art that's being pulled from
Yep.
millions, billions of sources, if there's not a system in place that lets every billion people get
Proper
some kind of
channels.
royalty for every art bit that's being used as reference, then visual AI art, as incomplete and freakish as it is still imperfect in terms of giving credit.
Yeah.
There's someone
Yeah.
in my art community that has basically been all but ostracized because they essentially do the art thing and they say it's their work because they put in the prompts. And that seems to be
Oh
the quote
no.
unquote AI bros quote excuse. They say, I put in the prompt, I put in the subjects, I hit enter, it's my work.
No. No.
Yeah,
No. 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 No.
I even showed him a horrible, depressing story about an artist that was kicked off one of the largest art Reddits because his artwork that he would do from scratch resembled AI art. so they kicked him out. And they said, if you want to come back in, you need to change your art style.
Yeah, I mean, for that guy's response, AI art, even with all the massive amount of fingers it gives you, is not enough for me to give that many birds. Um,
Nice.
yeah, it just, oh, I can't stand that stuff. Like
But I'm
it
on
was
your
funny
end.
at
Like,
first, and it could be used as an interesting tool, but this is a tool wielded by maniac, just monkeys, just throwing it around like shit. Like they're
yeah,
not doing anything creative.
I'm with you. Where when certain things, sometimes there's good things. Like Link to the Past being reverse engineered right now. But other things like when they want to test something, having something open source like this just it's just too there's too much that can go wrong. And before, when we heard about the James Earl Jones and stuff, we were like, "Oh, that's cool," and we knew that it was in closed quarters. It was credit where credit's due. It was contract signed. Everything was done as it should be,
Above board.
where everybody was credited and compensated.
Hmm.
But then when someone's just like, "Hey, I'm testing it out, but I want everybody to play in this sandbox," now the sand's going everywhere and it's making a mess, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good breaking point to move to the next story because talking about compensation and credit being given, I'm going to jump into this a little bit further down. But Bruce Straley, who was one of the original directors on the Last of Us video game and part of the co-creators, he's kind of come up and talked about gaming needs to be more unionized because The Last of Us as a TV show on HBO Max has come out and it's been phenomenal. Like even with some of the small changes they did, I think did really well. I'm not going to spoil anything at this point. They're 3 episodes in, with the third one being probably one of the best not zombie stories I've ever seen for this. Like they did a absolutely fantastic job. But Straley was talking about the fact that even though he helped create this world, he got no credit on the show. This isn't like, every time Superman shows up, you're going to see the two guys that made Superman's name are going to appear. And, whenever Batman shows up, you're going to see in the credits a mention of Bill Finger and crap, I forgot the other guy's name. I'm really bad at this right now. But
We
um,
know what you mean, though. Yeah, the
yeah, like
original
they're still
creators.
credited. And kind of the part for this is whenever they did the Last of Us remaster, the Naughty Dog purposely credited him in the game. Like they had a special screen that thanked him for his contribution and work. So he's like, if they're using all of the stuff for the show, he was like, I just want my name in there, like just to be
The
credited for it. He's not
originally
making any
created.
money,
That's
huh?
all you need. Originally created by, that kind
Right. So he talked about this with the Los Angeles Times. He did an interview. He quoted, "It's an argument for unionization that someone who was part of the co-creation of that world and those characters isn't getting a credit or a nickel for the work they put into it. Maybe we need unions in the video game industry to be able to protect creators." And then, like I said, he was credited in The Last of Us Part 1 remake, which they even said, quote, "Naughty Dog would like to express our deep gratitude to Bruce Straley for his instrumental role in development of The Last of Us and to all of his contributions to the kennel during his many years with us." So they knew they needed to say something. So I don't know. Credit seems to be such an issue in a lot of mediums, even, but
Yeah,
gaming has had a big problem with it.
ever since that a few months back, the Bayonetta controversy and how they should be credited, and it went into how the strike happened. And um, what they don't know is eventually they came across that when they did do that strike, was they had a choice for their union saying, well, which do you want? Would you rather have bonuses if the game does really well, or would you rather get compensated for if they keep making this game or if they re-release it? And unfortunately for them, they decided to go for the bonuses, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, strike's over. And now that they're coming back and be like, I wish I was a union, they're like, but you already made your choice. And it's hard now because somebody made that choice for basically everybody. So
Yeah.
it's a win lose sometimes when they unionize with stuff like that, when it's a bunch of when it's a bigger medium of people. But yeah, it's really unfortunate with Straley there, because then, like, you're excited to see your work put into a new medium, and then your name's not anywhere on it.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I can only imagine how frustrating that has to be.
The
Like,
only thing I can say is there's probably people like us that more of like the sci-fi nerds and geeks out there.
mhm.
It's like you'll, for instance, and I'm basing this on a popular franchise, but when you think of like the original Star Wars trilogy, you think George Lucas, George Lucas, George Lucas, and you have no idea who Irvin Kershner is or Richard Marquand are
Mhm.
when they're the directors of the other two movies.
Right?
So, so you're like, man, George Lucas made a great trilogy. He was an awesome director, but he only directed one of those three that you're talking about.
Yep.
So if you're an OG trilogy, like, um, you know, person that is just like, I'm the fan of the original trilogy, I love it. It's like, yeah, but they didn't give credit to the other two. So when you're saying Empire Strikes Back is your favorite one,
And it
he
is.
didn't direct that one. So it's like, give credit to Aaron Kershner, and
Mhm.
but people are just like, man, George Lucas, he made all the Star Wars movies. I was like, he didn't make all the Star Wars movies. So
Lucas made the
I definitely
world, but
get
he
that.
he purposely wanted the other directors to be able to put their parts of it in which
Yeah,
they
and now
did.
we're basically just seeing it happen again, where like something gets bigger and bigger, and then like the other guy's forgotten because it's not always that one guy did it all. A lot of times it's two or three guys, and in some cases, sometimes it's a team.
Because I wonder,
That
it's like,
happens with.
say, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that kind of thing happens with various shows like The Simpsons. You think The Simpsons, you think Matt Groening.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about the writers like Sam Simon, John Schwartzwelder, that kind of thing. These are the guys that write the funny stuff. I would probably say the most famous Simpsons writer is Conan O'Brien, and he already had his own show.
Yep.
So that's what happens when you have one person who is the creator. Even while we're talking about this, I see in my mind the credits for the end of Star Wars saying based on characters made by George Lucas, and that's the screen in my head.
It's also funny sometimes because it's kind of like a double-edged sword, Chris, is that other times, like, let's use Simpsons as an example. When they're like, Simpsons is no longer funny, that's because the writers are no longer there. Like the ones uh, that probably made the jokes that clicked with you the most.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to look deeper, or you have to like watch kind of like a retrospective or behind the scenes, and you're like, that's who was responsible for that. So especially, and I could see him doing this, that Straley might come out and just say like, you know what I helped with, or you know what I did. This was my idea, and then people are gonna be like, you did that, and then I don't know if he'll do that because that might cause a rift between like diehard Last of Us fans and then casual Last of Us
I mean,
fans.
he
Are just
kind of
like,
did with the interview. I mean, and then, Naughty Dog themselves credited him on their own remake that he was not the director of it, didn't work on it, but he had kind of started and helped build that world. And it does happen with a lot of stuff. You were talking about, like, George Lucas, I think his name should appear with the Star Wars films because it is based on the world he made, but they should also credit the directors, which brings up what Chris said. Like, you remember those particular screens. It's like Futurama. I think, Matt Groening, Stephen X. Cohen, because that was always when they crashed into the ship,
yeah, you see it
the
first.
sign, and that's the names that are there as the, creator and direct, and all that stuff, not director, but executive producer and
Executive producer,
co-creator.
yeah.
And but I couldn't tell you the directors of the show. I couldn't tell you the writers all of the time because I don't remember them. I know their educations, the jokes they put in, but we don't know the names as well
The
because that's the
fact that
stuff that goes
when
by so quick at the end.
Yeah, the fact that when they wrote equations on the board, they made sure that it worked.
Yeah, they had an actual paper written off of the one for the
Like
swapping brain.
they
I
had
love that
somebody on
show.
their writing team
Called
that
the
made
Futurama
sure.
Theorem.
Yep. God, I
Wild.
love that show. I'm so terrified they're bringing it back. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Animaniacs wasn't so bad.
That's true. That's very true. And they did
And we're
get Bender's voice actor back, so we'll see.
and now we're getting King of the Hill, we're getting Powerpuff Girls, and we're getting Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends. What year is it?
Oh wait, Foster's is coming back?
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie, I love that show.
Craig McCracken says he's back with Cartoon Network, and he's going to make new episodes of Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home, and I'm like, what's going on? And then Hank Hill's coming back with the original cast. I was just like, where are we going?
You know what? That is too good of a switch over. So since we've already brought up Cartoon Network, we're going to once again jump in the notes. Sorry about this. Cartoon Network cut ties with Justin Roiland after the entire legal mess that man is in. But just the fact that we have all these shows coming back, but they did make the call. They're not ending Rick and Morty, but they did get rid of the main voice and half the creator of it. And I kind of get why, like, for everything that's going on. And there's got to be something going on because Justin Roiland even walked away from Squanch Games. Like, he left the company. I don't know if it's under pressure or whether he felt it needed to be to keep what was going on from affecting the rest of the people working there. But I wanted to kind of get y'all's opinion on this, or at least thoughts on how this could be. Do you guys watch Rick and Morty at all?
I'm not a fan, only myself, because I come from a bygone era that apparently seems to be slowly creeping back. But it's just like I think the type of comedy or how the jokes hit are a little bit different for me. So I always put it in like kind of like the Adventure Time category, where sometimes flailing your arms and screaming something is funny. So but on the other end, like I take it back to like the Szechuan sauce. It's just like if fans are that enthused with the show, I was just like, I don't know about this show.
Yeah, I try and separate the fandom from the show if I can, because if we didn't, I don't know what we could enjoy anymore. Like,
so
I could never play my consoles because of those jerks.
but I'm willing to, why can't we all just get along? And I just said, like, every era is going to have like their cartoons. Don't touch them. They're great. They're fantastic. It's their childhood, so to speak. We can't say they're ruining our childhood because we already had one. So when stuff like this happens, it's really upsetting because it's kind of like Never Meet Your Heroes. You're just like, this is fantastic, but then you just you find out all this stuff and you're just like, now there's a dark cloud when I try to enjoy this medium. And until a brighter future is announced, I know people are vying for a few impersonators who have appeared on TikTok who do like 1-to-1, like perfect ones. So they're like, hire this guy, you won't even know the difference. And then, of course, there's
I wonder how the legality of that would be
with AI and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was like, how would the legality of that be? Would that, if you are purposely imitating somebody else's voice, is that something? I guess they do get that all the time, where people come in, if they can do the voice, that's just them doing a voice.
Well, that did
unlike
happen
the
with
AI.
Ren and Stimpy. John Kricfalusi was booted, and he was the creator. They just got Billy West to do Stimpy and Ren.
And
good old Billy West. Yeah, make Billy West do it. He would be an hilarious Rick and Morty.
And they recently did that because in Family Guy, because after the documentary about Apu came out, and everybody's just like, your ethnicity should match the character you're voicing, and that became a point of contention, just to show that they are making the changes. Family Guy was just like, we're no longer using this guy to voice Cleveland, and they got somebody, ironically, from TikTok who sounded exactly like him, and because he's African American, they're like, done. So there was no legality, like you said. There was no like problem. It was just like, all we need is somebody to sound exactly like him.
In that case, you're hired. The guy that voiced him, he purposely stepped down.
Yeah, he willingly
made that call. So I don't think that's part of why that was. He kind of gave his blessing with that, with who they chose and how they did it. With this, Roiland was kind of ousted for his own actions, which, yes, he's still going through the court cases, and I will agree, you are innocent until proven guilty. But even
it's still up.
There is smoke, there is fire.
Already made. Everybody has essentially made their decision already.
Right.
Roiland is not helping the case. So
right.
Yeah, when you get too much fire, it's hard to put out. So it's like,
and
too many fires have started.
Yeah, he's backing off from some of this stuff, and we'll see how it goes. I like Rick and Morty. Like, I'm not a huge crazy fan of it, but it's something I enjoyed for the darker comedy, very much like I loved Venture Brothers, which was such a dark take on the old Johnny Quest, including having a drug addicted, rehabbing Johnny Quest living in a diving bell, which was great. And Race Bannon dying, and that's how you learn people poop when they die.
Yeah.
Uh, that show was
Taught us
Fun
great.
so
thing,
much.
Ben Edlund, the creator of The Tick, actually guest wrote an episode of that. And it makes sense because Venture Brothers is basically the next step up from The Tick. So,
Oh, I love the
And
Tick.
and even like borrowing off of that, just as like a very small tangent,
Mm-hmm.
is it's very interesting about the Tick is that when he made the live action, they said um, other than the main two characters, everybody else Fox owns. You can't use any of them. So he had to make a whole new batch of characters and villains, and I was just like, good on him, but man.
That's yeah.
You're holding all those characters hostage,
and
so
those
you
are the
don't get to
characters
see
from the
them in the live
comics,
action world.
too.
Yeah, like Chairface Chippendale and all those. Like I
Exactly. Elseed, Barry.
So, and I think that actually overall, like it hurt the show. So it took it down. So they're like 13 episodes, you're over. You're not going to get anything out of it, types of stuff. And like Rick and Morty, they're like, we're in for 70 episodes, and we're going to do them all. And I was just like, okay, I hope you have a very good contingency plan because you just
now
lost somebody who's kind of like
The voice. He was the voice on the heart of the whole
yeah,
thing.
you're losing the Dan Castellaneta of the Rick and Morty. You're somebody who's doing a
well,
bunch of voices.
they have a very easy roundabout for this though. They can just once again swap to another family and it's just a different version, which they've done multiple times. Like I can't even count how many different Ricks we've actually followed in different episodes from different dimensions. They
There is
even if
that.
there's a little bit of a difference, they can do that. And it's almost like Doctor Who. That show was not originally supposed to have, you know, them changing from person to person. That just kind of came to be because the guy wanted to leave and they came up with Generation as a way to change the actor. And well, they've been doing that for longer than all of us have been alive.
Yeah, time travel is the most convenient and sometimes unfortunate MacGuffin that can just be like, oh, this person died. Well, uh, that person fell into a black hole, and this other person from an alternate universe is that person. You're like, okay,
Yeah, time
you're gonna get that with Flashpoint with the Flash movie. It's gonna reboot the DC universe
they kind of need
according to
to.
James Gunn, and then Marvel's just like, we can essentially bring back Iron Man because we can take him from another world, like
That's the
Spider-Man
thing.
No Way Home taught us.
Multiverses are the real problem. That
They're
just takes
they're
all
cool, but they're
agency.
overused.
Yeah, it takes agency from everything. It's just like, oh, we killed this guy. Open up a time rift. There he is.
I like it more when they like we have the multiverse and these different variants, and that's great. But I want them to be different takes on them, not just we found another one that's like this. Make it a different version of the whole thing where they had like what was it, Universe X, which was the Alex Ross comic book from Marvel, where they Wolverine had gotten old and fat because he looked more like Danny DeVito because his healing factor wasn't as well. But they wanted to try and find a way to write him back into another part of it without changing that. So when they pulled their group together, they did pull from the multiverse, but they pulled like a different version of him that was still like the older Patch version from when he was. And I was like, okay, cool. So they got Wolverine back without writing out what they had, but they didn't bring back the same one. They found ways
Mm.
around it.
But
And
like anything else, you can
yeah,
go too far.
Yeah.
originally, like, and I used to think this because this is what I was taught in college when I took up marketing, as they said, the reason sometimes these things are made, either alternate stories, one shots, different universes, time travel, is that there seems to be in the copyright offices that if you do not use a character for, as we're seeing now, if you do not use a character for a certain span of time, it becomes public domain, or you lose the copyright.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for like Marvel and such to keep a lot of theirs, they were just like, oh, this person's back and he's got a comic book series and a movie coming out, or this person's come back from another universe or time travel. So when I learned that in marketing, I was just like, that's very interesting that sometimes whether something like what happened with Justin Roiland happens or not, they might be like, this person's getting too old. We need to come up with a contingency plan.
Right. All right. All right. Well, I think we've talked about that one pretty well. So we'll move on to the other stuff. Next up, I wanted to talk about Microsoft laying off 10,000 employees, with many of them coming from their gaming divisions, which happened a couple weeks ago. The main reason I want to talk about this was like the hits that happened at 343 Studios, where they lost a lot of their higher ups because they have been having a lot of trouble with Halo Infinite, maintaining that, like the problems with the single player, and then definitely the problems with the multiplayer that have happened because they can't quite keep up with what's going on with it. On top of that, they did have, they're still maintaining the IP. They're still going to be making Halo games because that whole rumor came out that Microsoft would be taking Halo from 343 and giving it to a third party to work on, which has happened for a couple different games over, not in the Halo series, but for other ones. And it's worked out well and also not so well, as I'm sure we're all aware. But they did end up swapping the engine over to Unreal. So that's one change. But I don't know. We were talking about this earlier, like of all the runs of layoffs that have been going on recently with the economy and so forth. But what are you guys' thoughts on this whole just kind of cutting ordeal recently?
It's never good. Microsoft was basically the biggest one, and prior to that, we did see stuff happen with GameSpot, and some of
Mm-hmm.
the other journalist ones were long time journalists were thrown into the void or let go, so to speak. And
Yeah.
it's hard because you don't know what causes this other than, is it the stock game? Is it stockholders? Is it just a failure to launch? Is it promises broken for a game? Um, they'll like to give us kind of like the softball answer, and it's not the one we, or the PR speak, so to say. But
Yeah, we're never going to get the actual answer out of them.
and until like an NDA ends and someone's just like, here's the true story and stuff like that. Like when we finally learned about like just a for instance, but I'm finally learning about the development hell that Doom for 3DO went through, and it's like a lot of that was protected under
Good old Becky
NDA.
Burger.
A lot of that was
Burger
protected under
Becky.
NDA because it threw a lot of people under the bus. So
Yep.
you wonder the same thing about 343. You're just like, you saw some changes of hands throughout the year, and all you saw for it was, oh, they're losing this person, but they're gaining somebody with a new insight. So you kind of said, okay, a person of power is getting put in there. Is everything okay? And then you're like, okay, it's not okay.
Right.
Same thing I had with BioWare, where suddenly they brought back the people who created, they brought back Casey Hudson, who worked on Mass Effect, because Mass Effect Armada was a dumpster fire, so to speak, for a lot of
Look at what's
people.
happening with Metroid Prime 4.
So, and you're like, is that taking so long? And you never hear about development hell, so to speak, or any problems on Nintendo's side. But then you knew stuff was, while they didn't do layoffs, they instead took the more admirable route, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
of where Iwata at the time was just like, I'm going to take a pay cut so nobody gets let go from our offices. And then they said, what we're also going to do is everybody who's known for their series, we're going to shuffle it. And they said, and a couple of you are no longer going to make games. Miyamoto doesn't make games anymore. He's the creative fellow.
Right.
So he just comes in and just looks over your shoulder and he's just like, why are you doing that? Or if he's just like, that looks good. But he doesn't get to control it. So and that's what gets people worried when something like this happens with Microsoft. They're just like, well, who got let go? Was somebody who was like instrumental for Halo working on it? And then they said, we're killing all the DLC on Halo, and you're like, okay, so now we knew you got rid of the team that was working on that. Because you don't immediately announce that after you announce the layoffs,
Well,
unless
apparently
you
they
got.
hadn't actually put much work into it. Like they were so busy trying to fix the multiplayer stuff, which has been an issue. They hadn't done anything with the single player, and it's like it's kind of all falling apart with that. Halo Infinite, I enjoyed the game, but they really dropped the ball on that one.
It's like it's got infinite problems.
Yeah, sadly it does. Like, oh god.
And yeah, you see this too many times, and usually I used to think it was because of a Game Pass or such, but then I learned that at least for other companies, Microsoft would cut a check to
Hmm.
get something on Game Pass. And you learned that some of these studios got paid over $1 million. It kind of leaked out there that they got a pretty hefty sum. So they were like more than happy to be like, we don't know if our game will sell that well. And people who really like it, because Game Pass is not forever, will buy the physical copies. But the fact that they were promising that with Halo,
Hmm.
which is Microsoft, that means is anyone getting any money? Probably not. So I saw that as like, okay, Microsoft, so you're doing that to your very own property, but people would have paid money for that. There's a reason why Nintendo doesn't give away Mario for free. There's a reason why
They used
Sony
to.
Sony won't take one of their first parties and give away that for free. They'll give it away if it's old, both Sony and Microsoft. But for Halo, for Microsoft to just say, "Here's a brand new game that day one's gonna be on Game Pass," I was like, I know you guys want more signups, but this is not the way to do it because somewhere, no, somebody's not getting their proper compensation, and it's gonna work its way around. And unfortunately, here we are where none of their deadlines are met or none of their projections are being met for a certain title and or even a certain division, and they're like, okay, we need to cut the fat. And I was like, that sucks.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, and this is part of some of the stuff I'd heard about, and I kind of just real quick just to see what you guys think about this one. Part of it may also be because of the mergers and stuff Microsoft's been doing. They hadn't laid off a lot of people like after Bethesda and so forth, where now they have multiples of people, sometimes doubled up in companies when they merge them together. They may finally be kind of whittling that down, which kind of raises the number for the amount. And then for the Halo part of it for 343, it may be because of what was happening with Halo Infinite. Maybe they're just trying to shake it up and go from there and see. But that's the only closest theory I've even heard. Like we're never, like you said, we're never going to hear exactly what it was. But real quick, if you guys have any thoughts on that, we'll move on.
I think that mergers are par for the course. We've seen that for pretty much everything,
Right.
from Microsoft to the Warner Brothers Discovery merger to now
No,
the
that's a hot
recent
mess.
Showtime and Paramount merger of streaming services, where they're like, well, if we're getting bigger, then we don't need all this other stuff. So so whether you like it or not, they're gonna cut what they feel is unnecessary. And um, whether or not, and I think it will happen, whether or not Microsoft gets the okay for the Activision Blizzard merger,
Hmm.
and I think it'll still happen.
I do too.
Expect another round of layoffs, because then they're going to be like, we have how many people working on shooters? We have how many people working on these type of genres? We can just make you one team. We can pull a Ubisoft and start naming you like just where you're located. Or you're Ubisoft Montreal. You're Ubisoft India. It's
Can they
like
just
we
bring
don't
back
need
Treyarch and let him make more Tony Hawk, please?
it's like
Give
we
me my
don't need
Tony
to
Hawk
have
back.
these. We don't need to have these impressive names that would tell us its quality. Like you just said, when you see Treyarch in something, when you see Toys for Bob on something,
Hmm.
you're like, oh, I remember those guys. They're great. When you used to see Criterion on EA and stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's the Burnout
Burnout.
guys.
Yes.
So I said that, that's an unfortunate thing of the merger is then they're just like, well, we can't just have like 45 company names or developer names. Now we need to get rid of you, merge you. Now there's too many people on your team, so he'll have nothing to do. So it's like it's dangerous because it's kind of, you're a football team with too many players on the bench, so then you just clear the bench.
Yeah. Chris, you got any thoughts on
Well, I'm not as savvy on mergers, and I don't play Halo, so it's
it?
not really my thing.
Okay.
But I can say that the one bright spot out of all of this, it's unfortunate, but
Hmm.
you do have these talented and experienced developers that are now available to do other things.
Yeah.
So, with luck, there have been great companies that have been formed from layoffs. That's how we got Treasure from Konami. So,
Yep.
sometimes companies will form out of, possibility, out of necessity, out of spite.
Like a
That kind of
phoenix
thing
from the
does happen.
ashes.
That's how we got Platinum Games, because that
Exactly.
came out of what were they called when they left Capcom? Clover,
Clover.
Clover Studios.
Rip
So
Beautiful Joe.
I love that game. I
So yeah, it's there's still a chance for these developers to work on something else. It's just a shame that this was the reason. So I hope the best for them.
Yeah, me too. All right. These next few ones I'm just going to go through kind of quick, and if we have anything to talk about, we can. Nintendo is being ballsy as ever and announced that they are increasing production on the Nintendo Switch, not decreasing. It's now what, 7 years old that this thing's been around, and they're going to be increasing it now, or 6 years old. Sorry. So if Nintendo's able to make their original 19 million unit sales for this fiscal year or hit their now anticipated 21 million units, it would place the Switch in the near 150 million lifetime sales bracket, which has only been reached by the PlayStation 2 previously. Like they're trying to see if they can bleed every little bit out of this stone, I think. I think they
I
might be able to do it with Tears of the Kingdom and some of the other stuff coming out.
Yeah, I heard Tears of the Kingdom was kind of the last. I'm hearing rumors that it's the last big title from Nintendo,
What about
and you're
Metroid Prime
not gonna
4?
and you're not gonna see anything from them after that. And yeah, where's Metroid Prime
Oh,
4?
Yeah.
The
I still
thing
think that's going to
about
be a next system
the
game.
thing about Nintendo though is unlike other companies that I always hear backstage or behind the scenes about, is that Nintendo will finish a game and have it finished for who knows how long. But they'll like,
Army
when should
Men.
we release this? We just want to release it when we think it's going to be financially successful. So
Well,
they're
they'll do
able
that
to,
also as long as no war breaks out like Advance Wars, which I'm still freaking waiting
because
on.
people found out that Engage was already finished for Fire Emblem, and they just needed a time of when they should
Yep.
release it. So they just threw it in a usual month where nothing comes out, and they're like, "How about January? January's good now, isn't it, guys?" And they're just like, "Oh, there's something to do in January." So I see it as they probably have something to, a direct's coming. We know that it's coming eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's a when. We're
Right.
probably
One
going to get it in
day.
February, and it's not going to be exciting in terms of anything big from them. It's just going to be either a trailer for something that's coming out in May, and then it's going to be a trickling of things that are going to fill in the rest of the year. And I feel that with all these companies like limited run games, special reserve games, strictly limited, like I can keep going, premium
Super
edition,
rare.
super rare, that the having basically the Switch just visible so much, I think also took Nintendo is we can milk this a little bit longer so we can kind of tweak our new system, and maybe we can hit a milestone like you said. Like maybe we
Yeah. I
can
mean,
hit that and we can eclipse the Wii and PS2 and become now the top one, and then we can use that information to then court developers for the next iteration. And I think like it's smart, and some people are just like still. And I was just like, well, if you don't want them to increase production, stop buying them. But
right.
the fact that at the time it kept beating out all the current gen systems combined, and it was only because like they would say, hey, you remember this old game that used to come out for PS2? It's now coming out on the Switch and PS4 only, or it's coming out on the Switch suddenly. Or in Japan, they'd be like, remember this old visual novel that's a classic? We're bringing it out on Switch again. So
Gumshoe.
it's so easy to bring these things out that they see that there's so many avenues for it now that the big guys can't keep up, because with the current gen, everybody's expecting flashy super graphics. They're expecting like you're gonna test the hardware. They're not expecting, but they'll get it sometimes. The Switch to test the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just get shocked sometimes when Switch is like, "Hey, we have Doom Eternal, we have Outer Wilds, we have Ark." It's
Witcher
like,
3.
yeah, we have Witcher 3, and you're like, how are you putting these on there? What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
But people are saying, we want a piece of that pie. So until these companies stop doing that, Switch is just like, I guess we have to make more units. My only thing would be, please Nintendo, for the love of God, this holiday season coming up in the next 10 months, do not announce a Mario Kart bundle again.
Jeez. You know they're going
Please
to.
give us, please give us something else. Like it's like at this point, unless you're going to give us all of the tracks on the cart or something like
Well,
that,
look,
please
they're
don't
going to
do
do
that.
this. You're going to buy Mario Kart, and it's going to come with a Switch.
Or
That's what you
or
get.
because my thing with that Mario Kart bundle, I was like, wait, is that Mario Kart but with the OLED model? Because I know at least I think the Pokemon one and the Splatoon one are OLED models,
Yeah, it hasn't been the
and
OLED for any of the Mario Karts yet.
I would think if they make like a Zelda one, it would be the OLED model. But I like the Mario Kart's the old one with maybe the
It's the
new
new
Joy
battery
Cons
and stuff. Yeah.
and new battery, new Joy Cons, and I was just like, um, I was just like, I hope you not. I was like, I just hope you don't do that again because
Let me tell
that's
you though,
you
it
know.
sells like crazy. Chris, you got any thoughts on this one?
I This hurts to say, but
Say
I
it.
kind of wish that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet didn't sell the way they did, because they did, and we all played it.
Yep.
That means Nintendo knows that they can wait on releasing a new console with better graphics and a better CPU, because we'll still lap up these terribly buggy games because it's blank. It's Zelda. It's Mario. It's Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. I
I
actually, go ahead. I had something to add to that.
I'm just saying I regret it, and I do want Nintendo to, you know, go back to the 5 year lifespan so we can get a Switch 2 that
Mm-hmm.
runs Breath of the Wild like a PC would. But we're not getting that
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just hurts to see those games get like because unfortunately the Switch wasn't the most secure when it first came out. So now you're just getting emulators on the Steam Deck, um, and everything else, and it's just like this is how it should look, and Nintendo never cares about that, but it just hurts when it's like this is what it could have looked like on a Switch 2.
Yeah. I've never liked those arguments. Everyone's like, oh, I can make it look like this and it runs. Like, how much did you pay for that setup? Like, this is a $200 handheld, not a $4,000 PC or whatever, or, $600 Steam Deck.
But this is how it would look like in Unreal.
Right. Oh, God, I hate that.
yet.
So I
But
laugh. I go back and still watch some of those videos.
yeah, it still shows that Nintendo could be working on something else. They were never big on being the beefiest console. That's not their thing. But the Switch really does show that sometimes it pays to have a little more oomph in your CPU.
And it still does a really good job for it. And they could technically clock it up a little bit because they underclock the system. But I kind of look at it this way, like, so we want a new Switch. We notice these graphical issues. We notice some of this stuff. But do you agree most people playing the Switch won't care? They just put a game in and play it, and
Oh,
they just enjoy it
absolutely.
and it works.
Yeah. There's
So that's where
no
they're going to make the
question.
money. I mean, that's
Yes.
yeah. The other thing about Pokemon, where I agree that it'd be nice if it didn't sell as well. I kind of wonder, even if they make a new system, are they going to do like they did with the DS, where we got instead of a 3DS Pokemon for so long, they kept making DS ones because the market was so flush with DSs, and the 3DS would
Yeah,
play them. Could we get more Switch Pokemon
and
that can play on the new Switch?
that's why I think how uh, Xbox Series X and how PS5 went about it is what Switch 2 or Super Nintendo Switch, whatever you want to call it,
I like Super Switch.
um, is that backwards compatibility with the ability to have it look better is probably, I would say, like your best bet. And fingers crossed that because they have somebody who's not so, I want to say their new president of Nintendo is not so creative. He's more business savvy. So I hope I'm crossing my fingers that if he's dipping his hands into the next iteration, that's being considered is that backwards compatibility, because I think it's a must to be able to then have that data of how many people are playing it on the Switch to how many people are playing on the Switch.
Right.
Because, like you said, if you have a user base of over 100 million,
Mm-hmm.
why would you put out a Pokemon on the new Switch?
Yeah. Think about it, like back in the day when we were kids, how long did they keep making stuff for the Apple II when all these other computers still were coming out and doing things? Because there were just so many Apple IIs everywhere. Like I
Yeah,
was in high school and they were still making Apple II stuff because they were still there in the schools. Like just the number, having the raw numbers of something will draw people to develop for it as long as people are still getting it, you know?
Look at something like Monster Hunter Rise. Just
I love that
celebrated
game. I
12.
just bought it on Steam Deck as well.
Just celebrated 12 million units sold.
Mm-hmm.
So not downloaded, sold. So I was like, so okay. Thanks for that data, Capcom. So you're basically telling me that just over 10% of the Switch user base bought your game. And that's all you needed for it to be a success, is
Yeah.
only 10% of the user base. So it's going to be really hard to kind of get that on the next system. So that's why they need to hit everything right on the head. Like it's you can't do the same thing again. You cannot confuse your customers like you did with Wii U. Be very careful
Yeah.
that you do not repeat that,
I,
because
I
although
love the Wii U. It's one
really
of my favorite Nintendo systems, but yeah,
although
they
you got
screwed that
some
up.
really although you got some really like contingency games, and you got um a good time to buy stock in Nintendo, other than that it wasn't a very good time, because your system got passed over for everything. It hurt
Yep.
so much.
All
So
right. So let's move on to what has not been a raving success. Google Stadia finally shuts down. So they finally closed down that monstrosity. Once again, I will let everybody know they sent me their 4K streaming kit, the controller, everything to try out, and it was freaking terrible. Like I have really good internet here, and I tried it in the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. I had it hooked up to a 4K TV with the actual Ethernet directly connected in, full speed network, everything, and it ran like garbage. So then I tried running it via Wi Fi on a 1080p screen and everything, which is a worst case scenario. Still ran like garbage. Not a good sign. So I understand why it's dead. It had cool ideas, but it went. But as one last, we're sorry and thank you, Google put out a little tool you can download at least until the end of the year, where if you get a Google Stadia controller, which is actually a really nice controller, you can update it to turn it into an actual Bluetooth one. And it's what I use on my Steam Deck now. Like it's a really good controller. So at least we got something out of this messy corpse
it was doomed from the start, in my opinion, because the
because it had
the
Doom on it.
idea. Oh,
I'm sorry.
it's all
Dad
right.
joke.
What got me was the fact that not only did you have to pay a subscription fee,
Oh
you
yeah, that was
still
great.
had to buy the games. At least with Xbox Game Pass, you pay for the subscription service and you have a choice. You can either play on Game Pass with your subscription, or if you really like the game and you're going to be sad when it's gone, then
Mm-hmm.
you buy the game yourself. But you're offered the choice. With Google Stadia, you're just like, hey, thanks for a subscription. You want to play the game? Cough it up, buddy.
Yeah, that made no sense to me. And they were like, "Well, if you don't pay the subscription, you can still play your game, but you're going to be limited to this lower resolution, lower bandwidth version that's going to look and sound worse." And I'm like, "That doesn't help me if I just paid full frickin' price for this Ubisoft game or whatever." And I did not buy the games. I was like, "Look, you're going to give me so many free games to try this. I'm going to try those titles. I'm not wasting any money on this because if I look at it like the Switch games where it's like it's a cloud version. I was like, it's not a game. It doesn't
Oh
exist to
man,
me.
don't get me started on the Switch
Yeah.
Cloud versions.
Because, Kingdom Hearts, I still say is not on the Switch at
No, no,
all.
no.
Like, cause
And
they got lazy on
they're,
that one.
they actually had, didn't they have a time limit on Kingdom Hearts for the Switch where you could only play for a certain amount of time, including the unskippable cutscenes, and then you just stopped. And if you had lag, well,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Hope you had fun trying that out.
Yeah, it just felt like a bad business plan. It's kind of the way I feel about Amazon Luna right now. Amazon keeps trying to make these games and buy these companies, There
Hmm.
was that game Crucible that I don't even know ever came out. There was that
I have
New
no idea.
World game that did come out and failed. And now Amazon bought another property. Well, I'll wait because Steven knows this one. Steve, what property did Amazon buy recently in
Tomb
terms
Raider.
of video games? Tomb Raider, that was it. So
No,
yeah,
Amazon didn't buy Tomb Raider. That was
They
the what's the Embracer Group that bought
no.
up the stuff from Square, and that
Yeah, but
included
then
Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and a bunch of the other ones.
but if you look recently, Embracer sold it
Oh,
to Amazon
word!
for $600 million after buying all of Square's catalog for $300 million. So they made out.
They could have gotten it right from Square if they just offered them like 2 NFTs.
They
ah, can we not
like
get into that right now?
they
That's all
they
Square
pulled
wants to get
they
into.
they pulled a George Lucas Disney where they're like, we're going to give you a big fat check for your properties. Okay, now we're going to probably we're going to make our money back double. So they
Oh,
sold.
that
They heard that
sucks.
Amazon was doing a whole TV series around Tomb Raider, and then Embracer was like, "We own everything. Do you want Tomb Raider? We'll give it to you for $600 million." And Amazon's like, "Why not?" So I was like,
Like,
"Wow!"
just sell them the movie or TV rights. I'd be fine with Amazon making a nice prestige show about it. It could be cool, but they don't need to be making the games.
But
Well,
not.
good
I
thing
was
I
like,
can go
"Not."
back to my old Tomb Raider games.
So I was just like, "Well, exclusive on Amazon Luna will be Tomb Raider."
Ugh, might as well not even exist to me. Like I said earlier,
And this is
if
right after Amazon announced that because people weren't playing their MMO, they were kicking people off the service thinking they were bots.
that's
And I
great,
was like, Amazon's in the news for their games and all the
all the
right and
wrong
wrong
ways.
reasons, but
Yeah,
mostly
but they're
wrong.
still making them. Google's not. So
That's true. Who's the winner here? Not us gamers. Um. All right, so let's move on. After that fun discussion, real quick, Xbox had their developer direct on January 25th, which I have to say, like, people complained they didn't show enough, but I thought they were very clear. Like, here's what we're going to show. They went into it. They had kind of fun discussions and showed off some of the stuff for these games, and then that was it. And I was like, it was actually not bad to me. Like, people just couldn't keep their expectations in their pants. Um, it's basically how that goes. I wasn't excited for everything. Like, okay, Minecraft Legends looks neat, but I'll play it if I play it. Forza Motorsport. Um, oh, I was excited. Uh, I am a huge Forza nut. I've always loved that series. So I was happy to see the stuff with this. It was kind of, I think they purposely poked at Sony and Proliferous Studios for saying, like, oh, we're going to have 4K 60 FPS with reflective ray tracing during the race. And I was like, okay, that's a poke at Gran Turismo. Because they kept saying, like, oh, we've got ray tracing only in replays and on certain sections. It's not on the course. So that was kind of funny. No release date for it, but I don't know. Are you guys much racing fans at all?
It depends on the type of racing game. I really like stuff with a little bit more freedom, and that's where
Horizon.
basically the Horizon series were amazing. But then when you give me motorsport, I'm just like, okay, you're competing with Gran Turismo, while on the flip side, Gran Turismo cannot compete with Forza Horizon because you can just drive.
I just, if you cut
Because
the
yeah,
Ethernet cord, we'll see which one actually works. Um, sorry.
but I don't think sometimes people, like you said, people will direct their attention on one word. So they heard direct, and at least with Nintendo, it means we're getting a bunch of games shown, or with State of Play, they're usually like they tell you straight out. State of Play is like we're going to tell you about 4 games and probably give you a surprise. And they're like, okay, that means we'll
Right.
get 5 games. So their expectations are put into check there too. But um, when I see something like that, it reminds me of that comedic sign you can look up online
Mm-hmm.
that in giant letters it says free beer, but then in small print in the middle it says Wi-Fi and cold. So it actually says free Wi-Fi and cold
Cold
beer.
beer. Yeah.
ooh,
So in this
I
one,
remember that.
people didn't focus on that it was a developer direct. So obviously, if it's 44 minutes, how many developers are you going to see? This is not Indie World. These are they're saying it's from their partners, they're big guys.
Right.
So they're not going to say we have 5 titles we're going to show you. It's not happening. So they're going to show you what they've been working on that's either coming this year or ready to release. And the it was nice to see from Microsoft for a change, because I've never seen them ever shadow drop something. They've always had to
Yep.
do it on some kind of stage. Because you've always hoped that you'd have somebody come out for E3 and just be like, "It's available today. You can download it right now," and then everybody would crash the servers in the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we actually
But
got that with Hi-Fi Rush this time. So
so yeah, that was great that they had the creator there, and he was just like, "Yeah," Mikami's like, "It's right now." And I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
what? Really?"
I
Because the
love how
game
they're
looked
saying like, we
fantastic.
hope it hasn't leaked by this point.
They're like, "It looks so polished. That must mean it's ready soon. How about now?" I was like, "Whoa."
I
So
and I'm not gonna lie, I would rather not know about a game and then just have it announced and released either then or very close after. That's
yes,
I hate a game that
I'm fully
gets
behind
announced
that.
and I forget it exists because it takes so long.
And I'm fully behind that. I hate that in this day and age, data mining is a thing. I hate what
Yeah.
it did to I hate what it did to Smash Brothers, because I can only dream of how the reactions could have been to some of the characters back in the Brawl days,
Yep.
um, and especially with poor Street Fighter Six, like to just have that artwork leak and everybody's just like, "Oh, these are all the characters." And now as Capcom, it's like, now people are going to be mad saying like, "We saw your character in this artwork, we're expecting it, when's it coming?" So then it loses focus off of what the characters are showing, so they can't get a good representation if that character is going to be popular. Do you like this
And it
character or
might have
not?
just been
Well, where's
concept
Akuma?
art.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it may not have been a character that's coming out, or it may have been canceled for something
yeah,
else.
and,
Like
and
things
then that
happen. It's fluid.
and then that makes it worse, because then they're like, "We saw it in your concept art, so it's got to be coming eventually. Do we have to mod your game, Capcom?" It's like, oh, I was like, data
Then you
mining in
start getting
some.
the other, like the what is it? The whatever the mod community for Smash is, the not other M, but whatever, Project M.
Project M,
You
yeah.
get those people, which I get the idea of what they're doing, but some of them were just like, come on,
Goku's in the
guys, like
game
quit saying
now.
you're better than this. Like,
Yeah, but data
Yeah.
mining isn't all bad. I mean, it
no, it's
actually,
kind of cool sometimes.
talking of Capcom, it actually showed the horrors of what DLC can do when Street Fighter Cross Tekken had
Yep,
every character in the
on
game.
the disc.
Well, exactly. And they're like, no, it's DLC, it's DLC. No, it's not. It's there. You're not giving it to us. So
Yeah,
Yeah, and
sometimes
and
data
then
mining can be used for good.
I agree.
yeah, it can be used, and I feel data
That's
mining
how we
should
found
be
hot
something.
coffee.
Uh,
Like, I feel like it can be used for something even like that. But I love its historical purposes, like the recent find they had with Fighting Vipers, where
Ooh,
they found
tell
out
me.
that Fighting Vipers was the cornerstone or the beginning of Sonic Fighters, and the only way you could find that out is because
What?
there was an update to the game. Maximilian, the YouTuber,
Uh-huh.
covers it as well, the whole Twitter thread. But basically, you had to find a machine that had gone through, I think it was like 15,000 versus matches, which, for, I don't know about you, but a quarter munching arcade machine to go through 15,000 matches that had to be against another player. That
Right.
game has to be super popular and have its own stage.
Which Fighting
But
Viper was not.
it had to have that already in its databases before you could kind of go through a few more dip switches, but then you had to put in a code on the character select screen within 8 seconds. And it was a complicated series that almost seemed like an April Fool's joke, but you had to do it within 8 seconds, but then the code had to be finished between like the last 2 seconds. You couldn't do it right away. So insane, unthinkable prerequisites for this. But when you did that, it not only opened up the boss, but then it opened up 2 more character slots, and it was first Sonic and Sonic, which was Tails. So it showed you what Sonic and Tails were. They were built into Fighting Vipers, the arcade game,
Huh.
so they were already ready for Sonic Fighters. But the requisite for finding that had to be data mined, because people were like, wait, why is this file named this? Why is this that? So they started looking more into the code, saw that you had to do those 15,000 matches. And then with emulation, you could kind of flip that switch saying 15,000 has been procured
Right.
and go from there. And I was just like, that's cool. And I love data mining stuff like that. because I don't know how they find out about some of these things retroactively so far in advance. I know there's the Torakeke song in Nintendo games that people are still wondering where they are in more newer Nintendo games, because some of the things you had to do to unlock that specific song in games like Wave Race were insane. You should look it up. It's like a
Yeah, you have to
big
let it
thing
run for
that you
so
have
many
to
hours
do.
afterwards, I think, for that one.
But this is a new one for you, Chris. But I found out recently that Ed Boon actually said yes, it is a thing. That in Mortal Kombat Deception, when you're playing that game and you face the final boss, who I think is Ogre King, if I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
his boss right, if
Onaga, the Dragon King.
Dragon King.
Yeah.
And there's video of it too. You can look it up. If you only kick him, Onaga actually yells at you and says, "Stop kicking! Please stop." I watched the video and I started laughing, and I was just like, somebody
Stop
did
kicking your
this
brother.
and found out this little tiny Easter egg, not by data mining, but just by playing the game, and said, "Wait, did Onaga just tell me to stop kicking?" And yeah, it's the thing. It's it's when like a developer tells you there's stuff in the game that nobody's just that hasn't found and still hasn't found. That
Oh,
encourages
Lord.
data mining, but sometimes that's not even enough. So it's insane. But
Yeah.
I think that's where I approve of data mining, because it's stuff that's already been released. And like Street Fighter X Tekken, that was great. Or
That
Cross
needed to
Tekken,
come to light
however
so
you
we
are.
could see what they were doing, because that
That was
stopped
that
them
was great
from
too.
doing it again,
Yeah,
mostly.
that was great to kind of throw that out there. But when it comes to here's the full roster of characters that they have planned, I was like, don't do that. Don't
Yeah.
do that.
I
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, the way I look at it, like, I'm okay with them digging and finding that stuff. What I can't stand are the people that take that and instead of simply saying, "Hey, we found this data, go here to look at it if you want to. Don't look at it if you still want to be surprised." They just post it. Here's a picture, here's a list, here's all the stuff in the headline. And it's like, "Come on, guys. IGN,
See,
Kotaku, or just other people, you guys know better. Don't just spoil that out." Like, I get you're trying to go
Clickbait.
for news, but you can word it better, more
but
respectably.
I don't trust that either.
Uh-huh.
I don't like the click if you want, only because we live in the age of clout and clicks. So
Mm,
eventually, your YouTube algorithm's going to catch up to you, and
that's
you're
true.
suddenly going to see a thumbnail saying these are the new characters. It was almost unavoidable, because thankfully Capcom was going around doing takedown notices for people talking about the showing off the artwork, saying don't do that. That wasn't supposed to be shown, and they even said on Twitter that wasn't supposed to be shown.
Right.
So I'm fully with any kind of takedown notices that involve stuff like that, where they're just like, we're not prepared to announce that yet, and whether or not they told you to click or not, everybody wants to be the first person to get the clicks. So I don't even want to like share it at all, or I want it in such a horrible place that nobody will go there. Put it on I don't know, put it on GitHub that nobody uses, or put it under a password protected server, or
Right.
put it
Or
on
speed.
4chan. Like, just put it where somebody just like everybody won't go to check that stuff out because they either can't verify it or they don't feel safe.
Right. All right. So I'm going to combine a couple of these last stories to talk about, and then I want us to finish off about the whole thing with E3 that's happening right now. But basically, we have a combination of different games or services that are being shut down or taken away. Starting off, Sony is removing the PlayStation Plus collection bonus games that were given for PlayStation 5 users on May 9th. And this was the collection of PS4 titles that you could get from Sony Worldwide Studios as well as third-party studios to play on your PS5 immediately as digital downloads. So go ahead and claim them now while you can. They'll still be in your account. But people buying PS5s from that point on will no longer get this benefit. And I'm guessing part of that's also because PS5s are easy to get now. They don't have to put the money out to get you interested in it. And a lot of these games have already got sequels or other things coming out they'd rather you play. So I think that's part of why that's going away. There's been some confusion on Microsoft's side in regards to the Xbox 360's marketplace, because there was rumors going around that it's going to be closing down at some point or shutting down for specific games. And then Microsoft said that, even if Xbox 360 marketplace itself goes down, the games that are still available backwards compatible will still be there in Xbox One store, but that still ties in a lot of games that would just go away forever, like Daytona USA's HD remake, to go along with games that we've already lost like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 HD and stuff like that. And then the last thing is that we've had a huge spree of games shutting down their servers, including Apex on mobile. Rumbleverse just got announced that it's shutting down and they're giving refunds and things like that. So I guess part of this is kind of a quick discussion about the digital realm of games and the way these can just go away at any time. Like how do we keep this, like, in my background you can't see too much because my games aren't up, but you know your background, you have got a lot of games that are going to be decades old there that you can play at any time. These are going to go away. So who wants to start this little quick discussion off?
So, on both sides, like with the some of the like PlayStation Plus collection
Mm-hmm.
with different games that go away, some of that even drives physical and helps out places like Limited Run and such. Because then when you find out that they're announcing like a collection like Capcom did with their fighting collection and stuff, that even if these games like their servers no longer worked, we'd still be able to play these fighting games. And whether you're a person who does all the extra steps to like track down ROMs or stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with these newer titles, it's going to be a long ways away.
Yeah.
So I think what Sony's doing is, I feel Sony's using it as a tactic right now that unless it backfires, like like D&D, or Netflix, that that they're gonna basically say like, oh, we're extending it, and then they're not going to give an expiration date because I think they're doing this because they just recently kind of put out there that that the systems is going to be more readily available.
Mm-hmm.
So look forward to that. Then there's the rumor that the PSVR 2 is not meeting expectations for pre-orders at all, that everybody's just like, dude, it costs more than your system does.
Yeah.
And yeah, you need to heighten the deal. So a lot of people are doing wait and see in that. So they're kind of like, well, how can we drive sales? I know. How about we just say something's ending? And that is a little bit scummy, or I would say it's a lot scummy.
Well, another
Um,
part of this, I think these games, they're stopping the giving away of for free. They're
yeah,
probably going to roll them into one of the multiple layers of their PlayStation Plus now. Like,
because
oh,
they're
you'll
still
get
saying that if
these
you
if
take
you,
it,
yeah,
yeah, they're still saying if you take them right now before May 9th, they're yours when we
right.
get rid of the program.
I mean, later
But
on for people,
yeah,
they'll become their, as long as you're paying for it type games, just
they're
to,
premium and essentials or something like that.
right. No longer a gimme, but a way to get more money out of people.
Because I just found out that they are, at least on one game, they're retroactively adding trophies to it. I think it was Super Stardust HD. So
Nice.
so that opens the floodgates that like, oh, you can make a game like for certain groups of people who like that kind of challenge. You've just opened up a reason to play again, and
Right.
I think that's nice at least. For the other side though, with the all these servers, like I can understand if their player base is hurting. Um, but on one end, do you have the resources? Did you have anything planned to entice people back? Because I don't know what keeps Fortnite going, other than the fact that it's the Smash Brothers now, where you can have a level from Junji Ito, a famed manga creator who's known for his horror, and then you can have All Might and Goku fighting with Isaac from Dead Space because they're all in it.
I can run
It's
around as a
insane.
Ghostbuster with a proton pack and the Ecto 1 glider, and so help me God, I do that.
You can
Like,
use a proton pack against Thanos. It's
yeah,
like,
I'm
okay.
in.
So with these other ones, when I saw Rumbleverse, I was just like, okay, what's enticing to this? Is it just because it's wrestling moves?
I forgot it existed.
You know what would really help, guys, if you got some actual wrestlers to be, I don't know, some kind of DLC or part of the season. Maybe if they got the season pass, they would get, I don't know, Macho Man. Macho Man's still being used in games today. He's part of WrestleQuest, which looks amazing and so much fun, and I can't wait for that game to come out.
Hmm.
Because it's
Macho Man is
basically
the face of jerky.
because you
Oh,
basically have
yeah.
with WrestleQuest, you basically have like, what if Earthbound and wrestling got together and made a game? And you're like, I never knew I wanted this, but now
I
I
never thought I'd
do.
hear that.
So you look at the trailer and you're like, this is fantastic. But if an indie studio can get the rights, why can't Rumbleverse? Rumbleverse is obviously a bigger company from who's backing them, and you're just not giving enough enticing. You can't just be like, oh, we have more frying pans you can use. So I can understand why some of those, especially Rumbleverse, because that was the one that literally just came out a couple months back and now is being shut down.
Right.
Hearing about like Knockout City, that was I think yesterday or today being announced that they're shutting down.
Oh,
Crossfire
really? I
X,
thought that one was doing okay, the dodgeball one.
Crossfire X. So those are being shut down, and I was like, okay, that just shows that again, either they didn't have a season plan,
Mm-hmm.
or they just had such a drop because it just wasn't either interesting to stream, like there wasn't a competitive element. Because I feel that if you're going to make a battle royale type setting or kind of an open arena, you need to make it very competitive. I know Evil Dead just updated yesterday to have a splatter royale, so now 40 players can run around killing each other
Oh,
in the most
God.
grotesque and bloody version, and you can be all kinds of characters from the Evil Dead series, both games, TV shows, and movies. So I was like, you have a unique niche there now because
Groovy.
you have a mature rated Fortnite without all the silliness of Fortnite, where everybody's using Spider-Man and Naruto runs. Um, so
It's a little bit
you
silly.
know,
Ash Williams is in there.
but the other ones, when I see the other battle royale games where I see stuff like Crossfire X, I'm just like, what took you so long? Because I don't understand why you announced this, because I don't know who was looking forward to this. I usually feel that if you're doing something that needs a constant server like this, is you need to have a good basis for release. Like,
Well, I think Crossfire X was really popular in other countries. So I guess that finally died down because it wasn't so much an American focused thing.
yeah.
But I think not so much Japan, but I think China was really big into that one as well, if I remember correctly. And
But I
I'm,
was like,
oh,
PUBG is still alive, and they're coming out with a new like thing to make it look better.
yeah,
Because Fortnite said, "Hey, we upgraded to Unreal Engine 5," and I was like, "This is exactly what
I
I'm
got to give
talking
him
about."
credit. That looks so good too.
I was like, Rumble. Chris didn't even know Rumbleverse was on consoles.
I didn't
I
even know
just
it.
thought it was on the Epic Game Store. That's it.
I got
Yeah, he thought it
reminded it
was
existed when
GameCube.
they announced it's not existing. That's not good.
And I was telling people, I was like, remember, guys, with all these things shutting down, know how competitive things got to be to stay around. Ninjala's still around, and they're doing more crossovers. So I was like,
Oh, wow.
Ninjala, a Switch game, is still
That's like,
going on.
we did an early review for that. Like, holy crap, I forgot about that one.
So I said these games are still alive because it's all about the player base. If you don't have the player base, it's gone. So it's like the Microsoft layoffs. It's like you have too many people working on something that they could be doing something else, except instead of maintaining these servers. Move on. It
Yeah, and
sucks.
that's people have to understand. Like, yeah, it's sad these games are shutting down. I'm sure some people are going to lose their jobs. Hopefully, they'll move on to better ones and other things. But not everything can succeed.
That's
Things
the thing
sometimes
too.
just don't work. Say what?
Games as a service has been a buzzword and an
It's been a
attempt at a
bane on
cash
our
cow for the one.
existence.
That too. The thing
It's a
is,
death knell.
everybody saw it as an option, but if you have so many people playing Fortnite or you know, Final Fantasy 14 or that kind of thing, they're not playing all the other games. You only have a certain amount of people.
Yep.
Games as a service was pretty much doomed from the start.
You
And
can't give somebody an all you can eat buffet and tell them only to eat the chicken, because then all the other food's going to go rotten and expire.
Well, I mean, there's no way. There's so many options out there that you can't keep all of them going. World of Warcraft was the biggest MMO in the world until something like Final Fantasy 14 got its act together and kind of took over that crown. But WoW wasn't the first one. You had EverQuest before that. You had, things change as time goes on, and they may be able to maintain in certain levels together, but not every one of them. A lot of those MMOs either had to change to free to play, like Star Trek Online, or just completely go away. Like, I don't think Conan's around anymore. I don't know about some of the other ones, but like they just eventually die. You can't keep too many of them because people only have so much time and so much ability.
Yeah, and just telling people to like please split up your gaming habits. It's just like it's not going to be that easy. Some people are so entrenched in World of Warcraft that that's going to be for
It's
good.
it's the same
If you
reason
can,
that there are people that will buy a brand new console just to play FIFA just to play Madden, just to play Call of Duty, and that's all they ever play. You know?
The problem I see with some of these is what some of the older ones like Final Fantasy. I don't know if they do particularly unless it's a special event,
Mhm.
but I know for a fact World of Warcraft because my wife plays it a lot. Doesn't always do it. Is daily logins and to lock cool stuff behind daily logins, saying you got to log into your game every single day because one, we get that statistic, and two, you need to play.
Right.
Um,
I'll
is
know.
not going to be sustaining unless you already have a huge database. And the fact that a lot of these games as a service or battle royale games were all about log in every day and you'll get this, you'll get that.
Mhm.
Having that kind of reminds them of kind of like even the mobile mentality, and you don't want to be put in that category. And that's probably why even like Apex Mobile and Battlefield Mobile got canceled too. But
Yep.
Apex Mobile was like, yeah, we're shutting down because that's not working. Um, and it caused a ripple because of Apex, because of Battlefield. Then they decided that Respawn was going to make a tremendous game that kind of like put universes together for Titanfall 3, so to speak. And then they're like, and this single player game, we're just going to scrap now. And people are like, it was almost done.
Yeah, because like Apex Legends and Titanfall, as much as they never like to talk about it, are in the same universe.
Yeah, they
Like
wanted
they
to do
could
that.
have Titans in it, and just come on, man.
And we lost it because people were like, oh, people just aren't interested in this. Like, but
Titanfall 2 is one of the best mech games for recent generations. I love that game. All right. Before we move on, Chris, you have anything you want to add to that, or you ready to move on to our last
Uh,
story?
we can move on. I was never a big games as a service kind of guy. I'm very
Okay.
much, if you can play it offline, it's for me. So
Yeah. And we kind of skipped over a little bit of one earlier for Redfall's whole announcement of requiring online, but that's a whole nother thing I want to get into later. But I want to go and talk about the fact of, are you guys looking forward to E3 this year? Because they just announced some awesome stuff that there will be no Sony, no Microsoft, and no Nintendo.
So it's E0 now.
So it's odd because
Everything everywhere empty.
whenever I have like a get together, I don't call it just E3 anymore. I call it E3 season because it's the season of usually announcements are made because it's a prime time to cover the rest of your year. Um, so every year that we've had E3 season, we've either watched Jeff Keighley's Summer of Gaming, we've watched everybody else's direct state of play showcase, whatever you want to call it,
Leak.
and E3 was just tons of people talking, and I was just like, I can turn on Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Rogen, all these it's not Seth Rogen, Seth Meyers, all these people to just listen to people getting interviews, and I was like, if that's all you have for me, E3, and then you have the PC gaming show, I hope that's not yours because um, it's a lot of talk which can you can put that into a Twitter post. I know it sucks, but most of our interviews we want to read. So once E3 lost the exclusive, where like we went behind backstage and got to see this, and we're giving you the first look. IGN got the exclusive. We lost all that. So
Yeah.
E3 started to lose more and more relevance to the fact that it was just like, hey, even though you can play all these games as demos during the Steam event, during the Microsoft event, where all these demos are available, they're still on the E3 show floor. Please play them. I'm like, well, what are you gonna learn that we can't? So, like we're learning more and more each time when we learned that people were backing out. This was entirely expected, not a shock at all. And even though they tried to say we're going to put on the best show ever, I was like, you're not going to put on a good show. You don't, you are a concert that doesn't have any signings. You don't have anybody set to perform. You just don't have anything, and you already have rumblings that they're all going to do their own thing in their own stadiums if they do anything on stage.
They're going to give their own shows with blackjack and hookers.
And I was like, whether you want to blame Jeff Keighley for like stealing your thunder and having Game Awards and Summer of Gaming, so that you're like, I'm getting two things a year. Why do I need you, E3? that it's just a name now. We went in the past when it was more laxed, and we were able to get ourselves in, and it didn't cost you $1,000 for a ticket or $600 for a
Yeah,
ticket.
I kind of think of it like Woodstock. The original Woodstock was this magical thing that happened, that this huge music fest. And then later, when I was younger and they tried to repeat it, it was not that anymore. It had kind of corrupted and changed, and you know,
Now it's Fire Festival.
right. And it just became different people having their own shows and doing stuff. E3 used to have a really good purpose, not just for showing us a lot of the stuff because we didn't have that open access. We would, see the stuff in magazines after the fact.
Yep.
We might get some stuff on TV. I have a DVD set of one of the years of E3, which was, I think 2002, 2000, maybe a little bit later. It's when they first showed the DS. They showed off Halo 2. They showed off Half-Life 2. Like it's a 4-disc set that's got one for PlayStation, one for Xbox, one for Nintendo, and one for PC. And I can go back and look at that. And E3 hasn't looked like that in so long. But the other part of E3 that people kind of forget about is it wasn't originally for us. It was for all the people that were going to order and buy these things to go and see what it is and decide, oh, well, we do like that. We want to have so many million units that we want to order to put in our stores. And it kind of opened up and became a festival for people to see. And now that has spread out, that we can see it online and stream it everywhere, and they can control the narrative. You can't have,
Yep.
We can't have the Nintendo accident where the Wii remote's not working correctly because of interference or whatever happens. That can't go on now because it's all pre-produced and the product is packaged how they want it. So I kind of wonder if E3 should just go back to being where they show off this stuff for the marketing people and just stop trying to be this big, huge event for millions to see. They won't make as much money, obviously, but I don't think they're going to make that much now anyways. Like, what do you guys
Yeah,
think?
I, for me, I almost think that if they're going to do any of this kind of stuff, is that they need to. I know you're not going to like this word, but they need to do a merger or a merge. But I think they need to combine with CES, because CES is largely all behind either closed doors, or it can only be done on the show floor. You
Which is funny.
can't.
They used to be part of CES. They grew out of it and they're
Yeah.
reabsorbed.
And now they're just like, will you take me back? I'm sorry I left you, because
Oh, it's truly a
when
millennial
I
thing.
hear
It's
about
going back to its mom's house.
CES, when I hear about CES, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do for CES to experience what they're talking about. There's
Yeah,
nothing I can do except for watch it and be like, wow, that looks incredible. And those they have, just like the old days of E3, they have influencers who either got to interview the person, got backstage access, or in one event or so got an early release of it so that they could kind of dissect, play with,
hmm
and they got the directions of what they were allowed to do to it.
right,
Because a lot of times when they're given a product, they're like, do not take it apart, do not reverse engineer it. You can only play with it and tell us about all the settings. And that's what they do. And E3 would be the same way, where if it sounds exciting, it will make the news. But if it doesn't sound exciting, you're going to have to dig to look for all the other stuff. Instead
right.
of having it shoved in your face with everything from tweets to social media posts to Instagram to TikToks by these companies just saying, look at this, look what we have, look what we have. Yes, I know, but I'm going to look at it from the creator standpoint, and I'm not going to be like, why do I care what the show's going to do?
Right.
Because it's just going to have somebody on a mouthpiece saying, like, in 5 minutes, we're going to watch the newest Street Fighter. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to go to the Capcom stream. It's like,
Well, that's what made it different back in the day. I
Yeah.
remember the first E3 that Stephen brought me to. It was actually the introduction of the Game Boy Advance, and this was
Wait, you
a
guys got to go to
completely.
E3?
years back, yeah.
Oh, I hate you both.
I was there when they showed off Twilight Princess. It was great.
Oh, you mother! Oh,
I still have the little DS cart that plays the trailer. I love it.
I will do things.
Oh God! Anyway, the thing is, though, it was such an interesting experience because back then you did not have the access you do now. There was
Yep.
no such thing as a direct. There were no separate areas. If a company wanted to show off their latest thing, it had to be at E3. I got to put my grubby little mitts on a Game Boy Advance, which was, even without the backlight, the most advanced thing in portable gaming ever. It was mind numbing. I got to shake
Mhm.
hands with Charles Martinet. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
the back then they made it
Dude,
more of a spectacle. Like I took one of my friends to E for All, if anybody remembers that.
I do. I didn't get to go to that one, but I remember that.
Because that one was just like, hey, come do it, and that was just for the fans. It was a little bit more bare bones. It used maybe like an eighth or less of like the E3 show floor,
Hmm.
so it looked like there was like way too much room. Um, but when they made it more of a spectacle where it was the only way to even talk to the voice actors, the developers, the designers, the artists, that made E3 special. And the fact that it's no longer that, it's just games, that's it.
Hmm.
And then sometimes it's not even running on the right hardware because with Xbox, they're like, oh, look, you look underneath and it's a PC tower. You're like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
That hurt a lot too. But looking at when you look at even like comic cons and stuff, like all this stuff is available online, so what's bringing everybody there? It's getting the meeting the people who are involved in it and behind it. And if E3 is not going to embrace that and instead is just going to be like, we're just going to have trailers on TV screens, but you have to pay to see them to get in. It's just like, where's your enticement to bring me to E3? Where's the enticement for companies to sign up? They
Right.
don't get anything out of being on these shows. It's just
You
boring.
need something unique that no one else can provide. Whatever it is, a developer, a game, a console, something that you can only experience at E3. And that was what E3
So
was back in the day.
Hmm.
I can reveal that years back, when I used to work for GameStop, they had for managers they had a GameStop Expo.
Yep.
And what
I have
happened
a
was
friend that's
once a
still a
year.
manager who goes to that.
So once a year they would invite you to a swanky place. It would usually be Vegas.
Hmm.
Um, and then they'd have a part where it would just be for the managers to go in. And the big thing about it is they treated it exactly like classic E3. You went in there and you got to meet kind of the who's who of the industry, but now it was, since it was more specialized, it wasn't packed. And a lot of the stuff was so you would understand the game you were selling. It was for very specific people so that you could talk about the game. And um, I can say right there, like I got to meet Igarashi. He signed my Castlevania PSP
Son of.
game, and I was like, "This is incredible!" And you had Akira Yamoka there from the Silent Hill series, and I was just like, "Wow!" And I was like, "These guys aren't helping me sell the game at all." But the fact that it's bringing me to their booth, and then I'm looking at their lineup was genius because I was like,
Right.
"You're pulling me in there." I was just like, booth babes are gone. Let's never bring them back. They don't work. But having now like the
Quit chaining
prolific
consoles
create
to them, Nintendo.
having the prolific creators or having the having a nice setup is what brought people in. And if E3 in the past was all about letting me know all the aspects of the game of how it's going to play or work is gone because I can do hands on, or there's already like four YouTube videos that are like 40 minutes long a piece that talk about the game. The entire point of E3 is lost. Even you can see in the newest Game Informer, they already had an hour long play or more. I think it was 15 hours actually of Resident Evil 4 Remake. And what did they do? They created a huge bullet list that would usually be perfect for like if you were at E3 to write down as a journalist saying, I went to E3, I played the game that you can't play, but here's how it's going to work. And then that either greatly increases your you wanting to purchase that game or completely kills it, like Suicide Squad being a games as a service. So you either get a
I'm
bunch of
still
good
gonna buy
news or
that.
you either get a bunch of good news that just heightens your excitement, or you get that one thing that just kills it right off. And now we can get that without even turning on a Twitch stream.
Yeah. Quick note: I am probably still gonna buy Suicide Squad only because it's Kevin Conroy's last time voicing Batman. I have to get
Yeah.
it just because of that. He's my Batman. I miss him.
We all do.
That man was the best. So yeah, I mean, for like things at E3, they said, you go for the shows. Well, they have the directs now, so you don't need that. The hands-on stuff, well, hell, half the time they could just give you download. Like they used for a while, they started doing like, we're going to do all the demos as downloads, and you can try them at home now, like on Xbox, and play the ones that are at E3, which definitely made sure you didn't have to go. Then there was like the quirky stuff like Hall H, where you'd find all those weird accessories and so forth. Now we're just inundated with that crap with different YouTubers showing them off or stupid ads, and they're not like this fun little quirky thing we're seeing. They're pushing them out in our faces for a lot of stuff, so we just don't care anymore.
It's a new world.
Yeah, it is, and
you'd think E3 was going to get bigger because you'd think with all the indie developers that either even with a price discount that they'd be able to fill the show floor immediately with like, here's like a multitude of games that you can't even keep up with, so we're going to make it easy for you to find what you're looking for. Instead, they were just like, well, we're still going to have a great show even without the big three. It's just like, instead of saying that, what do you have?
Yeah. All right, we're going to have our Emmy Awards, but we're just not going to have any statues.
Essentially.
What's the point?
If anything wins the best of E3, no one's going to care.
So we'll finish this off. I'm going to ask each of you, and Chris, we'll start with you. So if they just announced E3 was completely stopping, would you even care at this point?
Honestly, I have not watched a full E3 in a long time. It's as I said before, if E3 offered something that I could not see otherwise, I'd be more interested. A friend of mine earlier today even said E3 should be about indies that would otherwise slip through the cracks. So if they don't change their ways, then yeah, let's move on. Let's make it CES too.
Yeah, because I mean, even for the indie stuff, like Nintendo started doing the Nindy Directs, and then Microsoft and Sony have started doing more of that. Yeah,
they did a spotlight too.
And
I think that's game right now is on Steam. So my favorite game right now is on Steam. It's Pizza Tower. So E3.
I'm gonna probably buy that just because you keep talking about it. It can't be that much. I'll just have it tonight. Who knows? It'll be on my Steam Deck by the time we're done with this. All right. So Steven, same question for you. If E3 they announced it was just gone this year, would you even really care with everything else?
I think for me it would just be like an alert on my phone. I scroll down and I get an alert saying like that one of the tweets I followed just says E3 shutting down. I'm like, okay, and then I go back to sleep because it's like I don't know what I'm missing out on because I haven't used E3 in the proper in the proper speech for years. I just say it's the season of E3, and when I say that to like my friends, they just say, "Oh, that's when announcements are made." They don't say it's for me. They don't say I can't wait to see what's on the show floor. They don't need to watch 15 minutes of G4 because G4 is gone or something like that. It's just
right.
There's nothing that's going to show it off, and there's nobody that can. There's no person anymore that can get you excited for a game either because Jeff Keighley is bought by Mountain Dews and Doritos. So I don't feel that anything he says is as genuine anymore because he gets excited in all the wrong ways. So
I'm just there for whatever trailer shows up and the dumbest things they could possibly award something for.
So that's what everybody talks about now. And because everybody talks about those things and because we get more of those where there was such a dearth of information back then where we had to wait until May or June to get info. And that's when rumbling started. And that's when rumors became actual news. Now we get stuff all year long. We get companies that want to meet their fiscal expectations. So E3 can't be used as a vessel for anything. So for that fact alone, if it dies today or tomorrow, nobody changes. It just there's room for the convention center to host a pay-per-view or something. That's about it.
Yeah. So my thoughts on it, if it disappeared, the only thing I think I'd miss is like Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony a lot of people, like I said, they always remember the shows. Those weren't actually part of E3. They were pre E3 events that weren't part of the main thing. And then they would show it off on the show floor. So even if the show was gone, what you a lot of people liked wasn't actually ever part of it, like a main section. It was just showcasing after the fact. So those we still get via directs and things. I liked how Nintendo would have the Treehouse Lives where they would go into depth with the games and so forth, but they're doing that via streaming now also. Their own stuff inside their studio. They don't have to worry about getting this equipment out, shipping it here and there, keeping security for people not walking off with those, you know, cartridges for the DS that have got that trailer on it. Seriously, need to know where you are so I can take that. Where is he? So that's cool though. I want to see what that looks like. Um, but everything that they could possibly do, technology has found a way around it.
Yep.
And I get more enjoyment out of being able to play the demos here at my house because that's become more common. Or shadow dropping games all of a sudden, like, hey, we've announced this stuff, but here's a game right now, which how long in the past, January was usually a dead month, and I already have at least one, if not two, possible game of the year contenders on my list that have been so good. One of which was just dropped out of the blue. You know, that when we were kids, that was unheard of. January never had anything because you were enjoying off the December holiday releases. Summer was usually a dead period. You wouldn't get that many games coming out. And now it's just 24/7 games. So I think even if E3 stayed around, it couldn't keep up with it anymore. And it can't. It hasn't been able to.
I also think, and love it or leave it, but the as all the horrible things that came from it because of adversity, the pandemic changed a lot of things for companies for the better because they had to find different ways of exposing us to this media because they could no longer fit us in like sardines and make us watch trailers. And they said, okay, so we can put together, so you're telling me we can put together a presentation, we can control the narrative, show off everything, not have anybody interrupt us unless somebody's streaming it. And even then, they don't see that. Only the person streaming it does.
Right.
And we saved how much money? We're getting how much exposure? We're getting how much, how many people are talking about us on social media? Like,
we just got how much digital sales from that?
Like, people are we're just saying the digital pre-orders available now. People are going nuts. What? And because of all these workarounds people had to do, they were like, why should we rent the table when that money can be used for more advertising? Why should we build a huge Mario in the middle of the center when we can use that towards keeping our employees?
Right.
So, like, there's all this money saved, and I don't know about you, but whenever a company can save money, they'll do it. Whether it be unfortunately getting rid of people or not going to an event. So when Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo are like, nothing of ours is really like shattering records. So why don't we just play it safe and all skip the show? Agreed. And they skip it. They know they can do digital events, and even if they do a event where you can go to, then they'll do like a Microsoft does with Game Awards and invite people just because they'll want somebody to yell at Keanu Reeves that he's beautiful or something like that. They'll want that. they'll want the memes, but for everybody else, they'll just want the games to be shown off and see which one gets people to tune in more and which people gets people to tune off. Like, oh, like Chris will leave when they start showing sports games. Like, I don't expect him to watch any of E3's EA's
No, you had
press
it right.
conferences because okay, E3 or EA, but he knows to ignore most of that because EA, except for Hazelight, which is kind of like their ace in the hole, so to speak, everything else is just every year. So
Bring back Burnout, damn it.
and he can't miss out on it. He can watch it. He can watch a rebroadcast at any time. It's not like it's airing on a channel that you have to DVR or anything like that.
Yep.
So, like you said, it's already available, and we've already adapted to being digital. So, because of that, a lot of physical things that are not made out to be a spectacle anymore are gone.
Yep.
So, We'll go to
Okay.
the concerts because concerts are, it's a different feeling. And I agree. I would love to be sitting in a conference area where Nintendo announces something nobody expected. I'd love to be in the crowd when they announce Metroid Prime 4 in 2028 or something, but I'm okay with it not happening now. I'm okay being the person who watches other people's reactions on YouTube because they're streaming it. I'm okay being with friends and we're all jumping down on the couch. Um, I'll get that rush that way now. I no longer need to worry about how I'm paying for my hotel room. So.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap all this up. All right. So we'll go ahead and close this out. I think this has been a fairly successful show for tonight. So I appreciate you guys being here. But as usual, we'll go into this. We'll start with Steven. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can mostly find me lurking around, trying to share my opinion where I feel it's relevant. I am found at loading_time. If you see a picture of Princess Peach, that's how you know it's me. Um, and yeah, I will, commonly just come into, either share my knowledge or to just echo somebody else's or my own opinion. But I just like to talk things, all things video game, and as you can see by even my shirt, if you can't, it is Legend of Zelda. But I like to think of myself as a historian on certain things like Nintendo, so I love to talk about past, present, and future, and that's what a lot of this podcast was today. It was nice.
Nice. All right. Chris, where can we find you on the internet?
Right now, nowhere, unfortunately, because Twitter is a dumpster fire.
It is.
But I'm working on that. I'm working on getting my website back on. But I do a bit of character design. With luck, I will have my website back on.
Nice. I'd love to see some of that. All right. And I've been your host, Jeremy Powers. You can find me at Zenspath over on Twitter or over on Hive if that ever actually updates again. It works on occasion, but it's
getting there.
It's not doing too good. It
got
needs
the best
some help.
chance, I think.
Yeah, it needs some help. If you're listening to this, you can find the video version over at youtube.com/ZenspathCom, where I also do my other video series. And if you're watching this and want to hear it, you can go to zenspath.libsyn, LIBSYN.com for the audio version, or you can get it from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, whatever. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us there. So this has been episode 81 of the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast. I once again appreciate both of you joining me because this has been great. And we're out. Peace.
Till next time.
I think Chris is waving, but I can't tell.